"I'll take the cash," Owen said. Aunt Caroline's hand went up before the estate lawyer could answer. Same. Uncle Wade leaned back in Hollis Mercer's kitchen chair and gave a slow nod, as if he had spent weeks wrestling with a decision he'd made before the coffee finished dripping. Cash makes sense for me, too. 3 voices, 3 clean choices. June sat across from them, with dirt under one thumbnail from burying her grandfather that morning. Beyond the kitchen window, rows of peach trees stood gray and bare beneath a February sky. The farm came with 92 acres, a failing irrigation system, an operating loan, and enough aging trees to keep a pruning crew busy until their shoulders gave out. Her nails were the muted pink she wore to church, funerals, and situations in which she expected other people to lose control. "What happens if the real value is less?" she asked. "The heirs have agreed to an in-kind distribution," Mr. Pritchard said. "Once final documents are executed, future gain or loss belongs to whoever accepts the asset. So if June changes her mind later, she can sell it," Owen said. June's head came up. He leaned toward her, both palms flat on the table. Owen had changed out of his funeral jacket, but kept on his white shirt. He had rolled the sleeves neatly to his elbows, the way he did whenever he wanted to look less like an insurance adjuster and more like someone who knew what work was. "That's all I'm saying," he told her. "Take a week, get another appraisal. Talk to an actual grower who isn't emotionally tangled up in the place. I am an actual grower. You work nights at a motel, and mornings here. That's helping Grandpa. That's not running 92 acres. June stared at him until the little muscle beside his mouth tightened. They had the same dark eyes, though people rarely mentioned it anymore. Owen wore his hair clipped close and bought shirts that stayed crisp all day. June's funeral blouse had lost a button 3 months ago, and she had fastened the gap with a safety pin hidden beneath her collar. Her shoes were still damp from the cemetery. He glanced at the others, seeking agreement without appearing to. "You have $800 in savings. 1,600. You told me 8. That was in November. Well, that changes everything." "Owen," Caroline warned. "No, I'm sorry." He sat back. "I'm trying to keep my sister from trading $300,000 for a loan payment and a house where the dining room floor drops an inch toward the wall. It does not drop an inch. Put an orange on it." Wade laughed again, this time openly. Caroline frowned at him. June had performed that exact experiment during the summer. The orange had rolled straight toward the wall and lodged beneath Hollis's oxygen machine. He had accused her of tilting the fruit, the memory pressed behind her ribs. Mr. Pritchard looked from one face to another. "There is no requirement that this be resolved today." "Yes, there is," June said. "Legally there isn't." Then, emotionally, Caroline exhaled through her nose. "That sounds like something your mother would have said." The room changed. June kept her gaze on Mr. Pritchard's yellow pad. Her mother, Ellen, had been dead 9 years, but Caroline could still place her at a table simply by changing the shape of her voice. Owen hated when she did it. Wade pretended not to notice. Hollis used to get up and check something outdoors. Today no one could escape without making it obvious. Caroline reached across the table, stopping short of touching June's hand. "Your mother loved this farm too. And love didn't make it easy on her. She left because she got married. She left because Daddy could turn needing help into a claim on your whole life." June saw Owen lower his eyes. There it was then. Not greed, not entirely. They were choosing the cash, but they were also choosing distance. Hollis had known how to tie affection to obligation so tightly that even after his death, nobody could separate the threads. June could not pretend she had escaped it. For 6 years, Hollis had called at dawn because a valve was leaking, at noon because his prescription was ready, at midnight because the house had made a sound he did not trust. He rarely asked whether she was scheduled at the motel. He assumed she would find a way. Usually she had. "Then maybe you should understand why I don't want it sold to somebody who will pull the trees out," June said. Caroline withdrew her hand. "I understand why you feel that way." It was the family's kindest sentence, and its most infuriating. They understood why June felt things. They trusted themselves to know what those feelings meant. Owen rubbed both hands over his face. "Did he ask you to keep it?" June looked toward the window. The orchard stretched behind the farmhouse in measured rows, dropping gently toward the creek. Hollis had planted the oldest block before Owen was born. June knew where lightning had split one tree without killing it, and where a tractor tire lay buried beneath weeds, because Hollis had been too stubborn to pay the disposal fee. She knew which branch outside the bathroom window scraped the siding when the wind turned east. June? No, she said. Hollis had not asked. In his last week, when speech cost him, he had asked whether the north line had frozen. He had asked if Mateo ever fixed the barn door. He had asked June to bring his old cap from the truck, then complained that she brought the blue one instead of the green one. He had not said thank you. He had not said the farm should be hers. The nearest he came was one wet January afternoon, when June found him trying to drag a fallen limb off the access road. She had taken the chain from his hands and told him he couldn't keep assuming she would appear every time he did something foolish. Hollis had leaned against the truck, breathing hard, his face pale beneath its permanent sunburn. "You always do," he had said. At the time, June had heard trust in it. Since the funeral, she had begun to wonder if it had only been fact. Owen watched her long enough to know the answer had hurt. "He didn't leave you the farm," he said quietly. "He left all of us a problem and trusted you to volunteer." Mr. Pritchard shifted in his chair. Wade became fascinated by the cold coffee in his cup. Caroline's mouth tightened, but she did not defend June. June folded the corner of the yellow paper between two fingers. "Maybe," she said. Owen looked almost startled. She turned the paper back toward the lawyer. "Put my name in the fourth box." "June, please. You made your choice. Because it's the sane choice. It's also the cash." His face sharpened. "You think that makes us shallow?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." Caroline stood and began collecting cups that did not need collecting. Nobody should be judged for wanting something usable. June glanced toward the orchard. "The farm is usable. That isn't what I meant." "I know." Wade pushed his chair back. "For what it's worth, I don't think you're foolish." Everyone looked at him. He shrugged. Wade was 63 and had spent most of his adult life arriving late enough to family conflicts that the worst sentences had already been said. "I think you're stubborn as a fence post. Different condition." June gave him a tired smile. "Thank you. Wasn't praise. It's the nicest thing anybody said in 10 minutes. Even Owen's mouth twitched, but the moment did not hold. Mr. Pritchard gathered his papers into a leather folder. Nothing would be signed that day. There were tax figures to confirm and formal documents to prepare. Still, the decision settled over the kitchen as firmly as ink. Caroline rinsed the cups. Wade checked the time. Owen stood near the refrigerator with his arms crossed, studying June as though trying to calculate a premium on a risk no company would insure. "You're coming to dinner, right?" Caroline asked without turning. June blinked. "Dinner? At Bellamy's. 6:30. I made the reservation weeks ago." No one had mentioned it. Caroline looked back and realized this at the same moment June did. "I assumed Owen told you?" Owen's expression supplied the answer. "It's not a celebration," he said. "What is it?" "Just dinner, after dividing the estate. We buried Grandpa today, June. I was there." Caroline dried her hands too carefully. "I can call and add a place." June pictured Bellamy's white tablecloths, Owen ordering bourbon, Wade complaining about restaurant portions, Caroline saying Hollis would not want them to be sad. She pictured sitting among them while they discussed what they might do with money she had traded for rows of bare trees. "No," she said, "don't." Owen followed her onto the back porch. The cold had sharpened. June buttoned her coat, though the bottom button no longer matched the others. "You're mad about dinner. I'm tired. You always say tired when you mean hurt, and you always say practical when you mean scared." That stopped him. From the porch, the orchard looked flatter and less forgiving than it did through glass. Wind moved through the unpruned branches with a dry, papery hiss. Owen put his hands in his pockets. "If you change your mind, I won't say I told you so. You absolutely will. Not for at least a month." She looked at him then, and for a second he was simply her brother, the man who had once driven 2 hours to replace her alternator and spent the entire job insulting the car. Then his gaze moved over the farmhouse roof, the sagging barn, the dormant rows. "You don't have to earn him after he's dead," he said. June's throat tightened. Before she could answer, Owen went inside. By dusk, the others had gone. Their taillights disappeared down the gravel road toward town, toward Bellamy's, toward 3 portions of clean money waiting behind a little paperwork. June sat alone on Hollis's back steps. Somewhere below the north field, the irrigation pump kicked on by timer. It coughed, caught, and released a long, metallic groan into the darkening orchard. Dramatic, June thought. Not dead yet. The pump ran for 11 minutes before it quit with a shudder. June waited in the dark for it to start again. When it did not, she pulled out her phone and opened the note where she had been keeping a list since Hollis went into the hospital. North line leak, barn door, bottom hinge. Replace belts on grader. Pump inspection. She added a question mark after the last one because question marks were free. At 9:40, she locked the farmhouse and drove to the Starlight Motor Lodge for her shift. The Starlight was a one-story horseshoe of 32 rooms wrapped around an empty swimming pool. In summer, the pool held water the color of windshield cleaner. In February, it held 3 inches of rain, a folding chair, and one brave bullfrog. Darlene Bostick was waiting behind the front desk with her purse on her shoulder and a foil-covered plate beside the computer. "I was about to call you," she said. "I'm 2 minutes early. I was going to call and tell you not to come. That is not what you said yesterday. Yesterday your grandfather wasn't freshly buried. He was scheduled to be." Darlene stared at her. She was 54 with copper hair she changed slightly every 6 weeks and reading glasses that hung from a beaded chain. She had managed the Starlight for 14 years and trusted no guest who asked whether the rooms had a vibe. "I could stay," she said. "You've been here since 6. I'm aware of my own suffering." June stepped behind the desk and set down her bag. "Go home." Darlene did not move. "You look terrible. I attended a funeral. Looking radiant would have seemed rude." That earned half a smile. Darlene tapped the foil-covered plate. "Lasagna. My sister made too much." "Your sister always makes too much. That is how casseroles become condolences." June lifted one corner of the foil. The smell of tomatoes, cheese, and garlic rose into the lobby. "Thank you. It has mushrooms. I take it back. You'll eat them. I'll move them around respectfully." Darlene's gaze dropped to June's funeral blouse, visible beneath her unzipped motel jacket. Did everything go all right afterward? June logged into the reservation system. Define all right. No one threw anything? No. Then better than my father's estate meeting. What got thrown? A ceramic goose. At a person? At another ceramic goose. Long story. A red notification appeared on the computer. Room 18 had requested 2 more towels, despite having received 4 that afternoon. Darlene leaned over June's shoulder and frowned at it. "They are building something in there. Go home, Darlene. Call me if they request rope." June watched her walk through the glass lobby doors, then carried the lasagna to the back office refrigerator. Someone had written, "Do not unplug," on the refrigerator in permanent marker. No one currently employed at the Starlight knew why. The night unfolded in the ordinary pieces June preferred, checking in a truck driver with a bad back, resetting the television in room 7, explaining to a man from Ohio that the ice machine was not broken, only loud. At 1:30, she carried towels to room 18 and discovered 2 married accountants attempting to block the light around their curtains. No rope was involved. By 3, the lobby was silent. June opened the farm folder Mr. Pritchard had given her and laid the pages beside the keyboard. The operating account had $38,712. It looked substantial until she started subtracting. Property tax, diesel, fertilizer, insurance, payroll. The annual operating note would come due after harvest, if there was a harvest. She found a supplier invoice Hollis had left unpaid, then another for replacement irrigation fittings he had never picked up. At the bottom of a bank statement in Hollis's square handwriting, he had written, "Ask Tasha, why packing cost up?" No punctuation. Hollis had treated punctuation like a city habit. June knew what Tasha's answer would have been. Packing costs were up because the belt jammed every 40 minutes and 3 people had to stand around while Mateo got it moving. Hollis knew that too. Writing the question down had allowed him to pretend the answer might be cheaper. At 4:15, Owen texted, "You awake?" She stared at the message. He knew she was awake. He had been making jokes about her vampire schedule for 4 years. "Working," she replied. 3 dots appeared, vanished, then came back. Dinner was a mistake. "I'm sorry." June set down the phone. A minute later, he added, "Caroline ordered salmon and complained the whole time." June did not want to laugh. She did anyway, once through her nose. "Sounds healing." Owen sent a picture of a breadbasket. "Nothing finished." "That wasn't my question." June rubbed one thumb along the cold metal of her car key. Yes. I'm taking it? Calvin stopped swinging his boots. Alma's eyebrows rose. Mateo looked down at the dirt, but not before June saw something shift in his face. Tasha was the first to speak. All of it? The land, house, barn, crop, loan, and whatever noise the pump was making last night. That's cavitation, Mateo said. Is that expensive? It's never free. Dennis made a low sound that might have been a laugh. Odessa put the lid back on her coffee. Banner Ridge is hiring. June knew the orchard. Everybody did. 600 acres, newer equipment, low trees planted for faster picking, and a packing house big enough to be mistaken for an aircraft hangar. They start pruning next week, Odessa continued. They're offering $20 more a day than Hollis paid. The amount landed harder than June wanted her face to show. Tasha shifted the legal pad. Advertised. What does that mean? June asked. It means $20 more if they give you a full day, Calvin said. Last season they sent crews home at noon when trucks got behind. Still an offer, Odessa said. They need answers by Friday. June looked toward the orchard. The trees were not ready. Dead wood crossed healthy branches. Last season's shriveled fruit still clung to a few neglected limbs. Pruning late meant risking weak growth. Pruning badly meant risking everything else. She had imagined the work starting because Hollis's calendar said it would. She had not imagined the people on that calendar making choices of their own. How many are they taking? She asked. All of us if we want it. What are you asking me? Odessa's expression did not change. Whether this farm has jobs. June could have said yes. The word rose immediately, warm and reckless. She could hear Hollis saying it to seed salesmen, mechanics, bank officers, and anyone else who asked whether he could meet an obligation. Hollis had believed certainty was part of being in charge. If the truth caught up later, he handled it later. June looked at Tasha. Do you still have access to the payroll records? I have copies of what I entered. Can you get me last season's weekly totals? They're in my truck. Bring them. Tasha did not move. You want the short version? I want the true version. That produced the smallest possible smile. They went into the packing barn. The overhead lights flickered twice before staying on. Dust lay across the rollers, and a brown vine had pushed through a crack near the loading bay. Hollis's old desk sat in a plywood office built into the corner, surrounded by empty coffee cans full of bolts, nails, twine, and things no one had identified in years. Tasha spread her records across the desk. June pulled the bank balance up on her phone and set it where they could all see. There's $38,700 in the operating account, she said. Some invoices aren't paid. Taxes are due in April. The loan comes due after harvest. I don't know yet what repairs will cost. Mateo whistled softly when she named the balance. Good whistle or bad? June asked. Just air. She looked at the payroll totals. If I start 6 people Monday, I can guarantee 6 weeks at last season's rate. Odessa's gaze held hers. After that, I can't guarantee what I don't have. Hollis would have called that weakness. Saying it aloud felt strangely solid. Tasha tapped the paper. Hollis didn't pay Mateo repair time separate. I know. He said fixing equipment was part of field hours. Mateo examined a coffee can as though none of this concerned him. June said, repair hours get logged and paid. The heat breaks stay, Odessa said. Yes, even if we're behind. Especially then. Tasha seized the books. June hesitated. It lasted only a second, but everybody saw it. My personal bank account, too? She asked. Calvin snorted. Tasha's mouth twitched. Farm books? Yes. And when the scale's wrong, Alma said, speaking for the first time, we stop until it's right. June remembered the argument the previous July, Hollis insisting the scale was close enough, while Alma stood beside a bin of peaches weighing 7 pounds light. Yes, she said. Silence settled in the barn. June could hear pigeons moving in the rafters and the faint ticking of metal as the morning warmed. Odessa looked at the others. No vote was called. Nobody made a speech. Tasha gathered her papers into a neat stack. Mateo walked to the barn door and crouched beside the broken hinge. Calvin jumped down from the loading platform. We'll start Monday, Odessa said. 6 weeks. June let out a breath. That's not loyalty, Odessa added. I didn't ask for loyalty. Good. Hollis asked for plenty. The words stung despite their fairness. Odessa picked up her coffee. Give us a reason to stay after 6 weeks. Mateo pulled a rusted hinge pin free and held it up between 2 fingers. And buy grease, he said. Your grandfather thought Greece was a personal failing. For the first time that morning, June laughed without having to force it. The sound rose into the rafters and startled the pigeons. By 8, the trucks were gone. The barn was quiet again, but not empty in the same way. 6 names now sat beside 6 weeks of wages in June's notebook. She looked at the number remaining after payroll and understood exactly how little their choice had saved her. Then she wrote grease beneath pump inspection, circled both, and went outside to learn what was broken. The pump housing was cold beneath June's palm. She pressed the starter. The motor answered with a hard electric hum, followed by a rattling sound deep in the pipe. No water moved through the pressure gauge. That's probably bad, she told it. The pump did not disagree. She shut off the breaker, took pictures from 4 angles, and sent them to Matteo. Then she walked the north line with a red survey flag in one hand, marking wet spots where water had escaped before the pump quit. The cold softened as the sun rose. By 9, her funeral shoes had collected enough clay to qualify as bricks. Matteo replied with 3 words, "Don't start again." A second message arrived. "I mean it." June typed, "Define start," then deleted it. She had known Matteo long enough to understand that machinery removed his sense of humor. She drove to her trailer to sleep. The trailer sat on the edge of a pecan grove 10 miles from the farm, close enough to the highway that passing trucks made the windows tremble. June had rented it from a retired lineman named Curtis for $550 a month, provided she did not complain about the plumbing or the fact that one bedroom had no door. The air conditioner was unreliable, the water heater held grudges, and the little porch tilted left. It was still the first place June had ever paid for alone. Hollis had called it temporary every time he visited, although June had lived there nearly 3 years. She kicked off her muddy shoes, set her alarm for 2, and lay down fully dressed. Her phone rang at 12:27. June answered without opening her eyes. "If this is room 18, the curtain is not getting any darker." Silence. Then Owen said, "You sound healthy." She rolled onto her back. "What do you want?" "I'm at Grandpa's." June sat up. "Why?" "To pick up the watch." The gold watch had belonged to their great-grandfather and spent most of its life in Hollis's dresser because it ran 6 minutes slow. Hollis had told Owen it would be his one day. He had said similar things about a tackle box, a shotgun Wade claimed not to want, and a cast-iron skillet Caroline had already placed a piece of masking tape on. "You could have called first. I did. Before you drove there. You're not officially the gatekeeper yet." June swung her feet to the floor. The room tilted, then steadied. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. It takes 20 from your place. Then don't touch anything for 5. She dressed in the same jeans because choosing different jeans required judgment she did not possess. When she reached the farmhouse, Owen's truck was parked by the back steps. He stood in Hollis's bedroom, holding a shoebox. "Tell me that isn't full of watches," June said. Owen lifted the lid. Inside were the gold watch, 2 tie clips, a pocket knife, and a handful of foreign coins Hollis had collected from gas station counters. "Caroline told me to bring the tie clips." "Did she tell you to bring the coins?" "No, I stole those." June leaned against the doorframe. Bold criminal. He put the box on the bed. Hollis's room still smelled faintly of menthol rub and cedar. The oxygen machine had been removed, leaving a clean rectangle on the rug. His green farm cap hung from the corner of the mirror. Owen followed her eyes to it. "You want that?" he asked. "No, you're staring at it. I know where it is." "Good. I was worried." June folded her arms. "You woke me up. I didn't know you were asleep at noon. I worked all night and spent the morning checking irrigation. You're already doing this." "Doing what?" "Acting like exhaustion is proof of ownership." She straightened. "You came for a watch. Take the watch." Owen shut the shoebox. "The crew was here." "How do you know that?" "Calvin's truck has his name painted across the tailgate. It's not advanced detective work. They start Monday. All 6? "Yes." "With what money?" "The farm account." "And after that?" "We harvest peaches and sell them. It's an orchard. There's a traditional sequence." His jaw flexed. "I'm trying to ask a reasonable question. You're asking it in Grandpa's bedroom while collecting valuables." Owen looked down at the box. Hurt crossed his face so quickly June almost missed it. "You think that's what this is?" "I think you chose cash yesterday and came back today for a gold watch. The watch was promised to me when I graduated." "I know." "Then why make it ugly?" "Because he had gotten a promise. Because Hollis had named something years ago, and attached Owen's name to it in a sentence everyone remembered. June looked away. "I'm tired," she said. "There it is. Don't." Owen took the watch out and turned it over. Hollis had scratched the back near the winding stem. Owen rubbed the mark with his thumb. "I don't want the farm," he said. "That doesn't mean I didn't love him. I didn't say it did. You keep not saying things very loudly." June sank onto the edge of the bed. The mattress gave a tired squeak. Owen sat beside her, leaving the shoebox between them. For a while, neither spoke. Then he nodded toward the window. "Your car was making a noise. Cars do that. That clicking isn't normal. Neither is your interest in my engine." He ignored her. "Pop the hood before I go." "You're wearing loafers. I can be competent in loafers." The clicking turned out to be a loose heat shield, which Owen secured with wire from Hollis's workbench while complaining that June had not mentioned it. June held the flashlight and did not point out that he had arrived expecting to leave in 5 minutes. When he finished, he wiped his hands on a rag. "I still think you should sell," he said. "I know, and I'm not hoping you fail. I don't know that." Owen looked at her over the raised hood. "Well, figure it out." He left with the watch, the tie clips, and the stolen coins. The green cap remained on the mirror. June slept 3 more hours at the trailer and woke with the imprint of a jacket zipper on her cheek. She spent the weekend carrying boxes from the trailer to the farmhouse, because paying rent on a place while owning an empty house seemed like a luxury. The move exposed how little she had. Her clothes fit into 2 plastic bins. Her dishes filled 1 grocery box with room left for towels. Darlene arrived Sunday afternoon in a station wagon loaded with cleaning supplies, shelf paper, and opinions. "You cannot sleep in that room," she announced after inspecting Hollis's mattress. "It has a bed. It has a historic depression in the middle. He slept in one spot. For 40 years, apparently." They dragged the mattress into the hall and set up June's smaller one on the frame. Darlene opened the bedroom curtains, sneezed twice, and inspected the dresser. "Do you want me to help with his clothes?" "No." "All right." Darlene did not touch the closet again. Instead, she scrubbed the kitchen sink and told June a long story about the ceramic geese from her father's estate. By the end, June still did not understand why there had been 2 geese, but she understood that Darlene's sister had received the larger one and considered it an insult. At 6 Monday morning, truck headlights swept across the farmhouse ceiling. June had slept less than 4 hours after her motel shift. She pulled on boots, found Hollis's green cap still hanging from the mirror, and chose her own knit hat instead. Outside, Odessa was unlocking the tool cage. Tasha carried a thermos large enough to supply a medical ward. Calvin and Dennis unloaded ladders. Alma sharpened pruning shears against a small stone. Mateo had already removed the pump cover. "You brought grease," he said when June approached. She held up the bag from the farm supply store. "2 kinds. There's only 1 kind we need." The man at the store had strong feelings. The man at the store sells grease. June handed him the bag. "Can it be fixed?" Mateo pointed into the open housing. The impeller was pitted, and one edge had broken away. "Not with grease." "How much?" "New pump, maybe 9,000 with labor." June stared at him. "This one, if I find an impeller and the shaft isn't bent, under 2. Under 200? Mateo's face remained kind. "No." "Right, of course. I can pull it today. Do it." She said the words quickly before $2,000 could become large enough to stop her. At the first row, Odessa handed June a pair of loppers. The oldest trees had grown crowded, their upper branches tangling into dense knots. "We take out the dead wood first," June said. "Then, crossing branches, water sprouts, anything growing inward." Odessa nodded toward the nearest tree. "Show me." June stepped beneath it. Hollis had taught her to find the shape hiding inside an overgrown peach tree, a low, open bowl that let sunlight reach the center. She removed a dead branch, then another. The third limb was healthy but too upright. Cutting it would leave a gap that looked severe. She lowered the loppers. Odessa waited. "Hollis liked this branch," June said. "Did he tell you that?" "He refused to cut it for 5 years. That might mean he liked it. Might mean his shoulder hurt." Calvin laughed from the next tree. June raised the loppers again, but hesitated. Odessa touched the branch near its base. "It's shading every piece of new wood under it. It still produces. Not enough. It isn't dead. Living and useful aren't the same." The words struck too close to something June did not want examined before breakfast. Odessa seemed to see that. Her voice softened by half a degree. "Tree doesn't care who planted it," she said. "It cares whether you make the cut." June set the lopper blades against the branch. The wood resisted, then snapped with a dry crack. The limb dropped into the row, opening a clean space above them. Morning light fell through it and reached the younger branches below. Hollis would have complained. He might also have admitted, 3 months later, that the tree looked better. June moved to the next branch. By noon, her shoulders burned. She refused to stop first. When Odessa called lunch, June kept cutting until Alma walked past and closed the lopper handles with one gloved hand. "Break means everybody," Alma said. "I was finishing the tree. Tree will be here." June looked around. The others were already heading toward the barn. No one appeared impressed by her endurance. She followed them. They ate on overturned bins near the loading platform. Tasha passed around coffee. Calvin offered June half a ham sandwich, then took the larger half after pretending the choice was hers. Mateo came up from the pump. June looked at their faces, the cut branches stacked in the rows, the open shapes beginning to appear in the orchard. Nothing had been rescued. Money was leaving faster than water ever had. June felt the embarrassment of that, even though the debt was not hers, then felt foolish for caring what a parts counter in Byron thought of the Mercer name. Mateo rebuilt the pump through lunch. At 2:30, everyone gathered near the concrete housing while he tightened the final bolt. "Should we stand back?" Calvin asked. "Only you," Mateo said. He flipped the breaker. The motor caught with a deep, steady hum. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the pipe jerked beneath June's hand. The pressure needle rose. Far out in the north block, sprinklers began turning in slow silver arcs. Calvin applauded. Tasha lifted both arms as if a touchdown had been scored. Mateo watched the gauge with no expression at all, which June had learned meant he was pleased. The pump gave one small metallic cough. Everyone went quiet. Mateo leaned closer. The motor settled again. "Dramatic," June said. "Not dead yet," Calvin replied. June looked at him. He grinned. "You talk loud when you're alone." She had forgotten he had been near the barn that first evening. That night at the Starlight, June wrote the pump expense into a ledger Tasha had created. Tasha had rejected Hollis's old system, which consisted of a check register, 3 file boxes, and unpaid bills stored according to how angry they made him. The new ledger used green columns for money coming in and red for money leaving. At the moment, it contained almost no green. June stared at the red number until the lobby doors opened. A man in a hunting jacket came in, carrying a lamp. "Can I help you?" June asked. "Room 11, lamp don't work." She looked at the lamp, then at him. "You brought it with you?" "Figured that'd save a trip. That is unusually considerate." He set it on the counter. "Also, it smells hot." June unplugged nothing because the lamp was not plugged in. She carried it to the maintenance closet, found a replacement, and returned 20 minutes later to discover the man had gone back to his room with the television remote from the lobby. At 5:40, she woke with her cheek against Tasha's ledger. Darlene stood across the desk. June lifted her head. A green line from the spreadsheet printout had transferred to her face. "You snore small," Darlene said. "I wasn't asleep. I took a picture. That violates company policy. We don't have company policy. We have a binder full of warnings about bed bugs." June sat up and checked the lobby. Dawn had begun to bleach the windows. Darlene slid a paper cup of coffee toward her. "I can cover Tuesday night. I need the hours. You also need a pulse. The farm isn't paying me, then the farm has an excellent arrangement." June drank the coffee. It was strong enough to feel medicinal. Darlene leaned one hip against the counter. "How long do you plan to work both jobs?" "Until harvest." "That's 5 months. I know how calendars work. You fell asleep in a lobby where a man steals remotes. He borrowed it. He took it to Ohio. I've seen his address." June rubbed the green mark on her cheek. "I can't quit. I didn't ask you to." "What are you asking?" Darlene was silent for a moment. "Which job do you think doesn't count as work?" June looked down at the ledger. Darlene sighed. "Take Tuesday. You can pick up a Friday later if you still want to ruin your life." June wanted to refuse. Instead, she nodded once. "Good," Darlene said. "Now go check room 11 for our remote." The formal estate papers were signed the following Monday at the farmhouse kitchen table. Mr. Pritchard placed 4 blue folders where the yellow pad had been. Caroline wore a red scarf and smelled like the expensive hand cream she had given June every Christmas since June was 19. Wade kept checking the same page as though a different number might appear. Owen read every word. Outside, pruning shears clicked steadily through the orchard. Caroline glanced toward the window. "They've started then." "2 weeks ago," June said. "All 6? Yes." "Daddy's whole crew?" "They're not furniture, Caroline." Her aunt's eyes narrowed. "I know that." Mr. Pritchard intervened by passing June another signature page. The transfer itself took 17 minutes. Wade received the routing confirmation on his phone before he had capped his pen. He stared at the screen, and something in his face loosened. "Good?" Caroline asked. "Good." Owen's phone buzzed next. He turned it face down without looking. June received no notification. Her inheritance stood outside under a cold sky, missing 412 limbs and gaining new problems faster than she could list them. "Mister?" Pritchard handed her a ring holding 7 keys. "The brass one is the front door," he said. "The small silver key is marked office. I'm afraid I don't know the others." "Neither did Hollis," June said. When the lawyer left, Wade hugged her. He was not a practiced hugger. His shoulder struck her chin. "You'll call if you need something?" he asked. June stepped back. "Would you come?" He looked offended, then uncertain. "Yes," he said. She believed that he meant it while saying it. With Wade, later was a separate country governed by different laws. Caroline kissed June's cheek. "I hope you prove us wrong." It was intended as encouragement. "About what?" June asked. Caroline opened her mouth, closed it, and gathered her folder. Owen stayed after the others left. He stood by the sink, watching June fit the new keys into her pocket. "So," he said, "it's done." "Yes." 302 after final expenses. June did not know whether he was confessing or celebrating. "Congratulations." "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Make me ashamed to be relieved." "I'm not making you anything. That's Caroline's move. Don't steal it." June almost smiled. Outside, a branch cracked. Owen looked toward the sound. "What's the cash for?" she asked. He slipped his hands into his coat pockets. "Paying off the house. Maybe buying into a claims adjustment firm in Macon." "You hate Macon. I hate driving to Macon. Owning part of something there might improve it. That is not how cities work." He gave a small laugh, then glanced through the doorway toward Hollis's bedroom. "I brought the watch back." June frowned. "Why?" "It stopped. It always stops." "I took it to a jeweler. Repair costs more than it's worth." She waited. Owen rubbed the back of his neck. "That sounded different before I said it. Most family sentences do. I'm not giving it up. I just left it on the dresser until I decide." "Fine." He studied her. "You could still sell this place next year. And you could still decide not to buy into a company in a city you hate. Fair." He drove away before lunch. Tasha came into the kitchen at 2, carrying the farm ledger and a stack of invoices. She sat where Caroline had been and opened the red columns. "We need to talk about Hollis's wholesale contract," she said. June poured them both coffee. "What about it?" "It's bad. Bad like the pump or bad like the dining room floor. Put an orange on it." June sat across from her. For 12 years, Hollis had sold most of his crop to Kavanaugh Produce. The arrangement was simple. Kavanaugh supplied bins, sent trucks, and paid by grade. Hollis liked the predictability and described Mr. Kavanaugh as a man whose handshake meant something. Tasha showed June the numbers. His handshake deducted packing fees twice last season. June examined the statements. Did Hollis challenge it? I did. They corrected 1 month. What about the others? Hollis told me to leave it. Said he didn't want to poison the relationship over clerical mistakes. They paid him 6 cents less per pound than the average on these later loads. Quality deductions. Were they justified? Tasha leaned back. Some. Not all. June called Kavanaugh Produce from the kitchen. A receptionist transferred her twice before a man with a smooth, patient voice answered. June Mercer, he said. I heard about Hollis. Fine grower, thank you. Hard man sometimes, but fair. June looked at Tasha. I'm reviewing this season's contract, June said. Nothing to worry about. We'll renew on the same terms. I have concerns about last year's deductions. A pause followed. Not long, but long enough to establish the new shape of the conversation. Hollis understood how variable fruit can be, Mr. Kavanaugh said. I understand that too. Of course. But it takes years to develop his judgment. Tasha's eyebrows rose. June held her gaze. Then, it's fortunate I've worked here for years. I didn't mean any offense. No, I know. Another family sentence. Mr. Kavanaugh promised to send the proposed contract. When it arrived, the base price was unchanged, while transportation and packing fees had increased. Tasha watched June read it. We can't survive on this, June said. Hollis barely did. June looked through the window at the crew moving between the trees. 6 people had accepted her 6-week promise. The farm had water again, but nearly $3,000 had disappeared to make it flow. The buyer Hollis trusted had just offered terms that assumed June would be too frightened to argue. What happens if we don't sign? She asked. Tasha's voice was quiet. Then we grow peaches with nowhere to send them. Outside, Odessa made a cut. A heavy branch dropped and sunlight opened through the tree. June read the proposed contract 3 times before asking Tasha for a pen. Tasha did not hand her one. You're signing it? I'm making notes. I've seen you make notes. You press too hard when you're angry. I'm not angry. Tasha looked at the paper. The word duplicate had been written beside one fee deeply enough to leave an impression on the kitchen table. June held out her hand, pen. Tasha gave her a pencil. They spent the next hour taking apart Kavanaugh's offer line by line. The base price looked simple, until deductions were applied for sorting, hauling, rejected fruit, damaged bins, fuel surcharges, and something called seasonal handling. What is seasonal handling? June asked. They handle it during the season. That cannot be the whole explanation. It was when I asked. June circled it. Hollis's green cap still hung from the bedroom mirror down the hall. Owen's watch lay on the dresser beneath it. June could see both from her chair if she leaned slightly to the left. She stopped leaning. Who else buys around here? She asked. Everybody buys if you have 10 boxes, Tasha said. Almost nobody buys if you have 10,000. What about restaurants? Some. Farm markets. Some. Breweries. Tasha tilted her head. You planning to ferment your problems? I'm brainstorming. You're naming places with kitchens. That is where food goes. Tasha made a list anyway. June called 5 growers that afternoon. 2 would not discuss prices. 1 gave her a number that was even worse than Kavanaugh's. Another told her to sell the farm before she got attached. The 5th, a woman who grew peaches and pecans outside Perry, laughed for so long, June checked whether the call had dropped. You inherited an orchard in your grandfather's contract? The woman said. Yes. Which one scares you more? I'm still deciding. Contract should. She would not buy June's crop, but she told her what Kavanaugh had paid in the region the previous season. Even allowing for differences in grade, Hollis's price had been low. June called Owen during his lunch hour. Before you get excited, she said when he answered, I am not selling. I wasn't excited. You inhaled. I breathe, June. It's a health practice. She gave him the contract figures. Owen went quiet in the way he did when numbers replaced emotion. June could picture him in his office, sleeves rolled exactly to his elbows, writing on a legal pad. What percentage of the crop did Grandpa send them? He asked. About 85. And what percentage can you sell elsewhere? I don't know yet. That's not a percentage. I called for practical advice, not an insurance adjuster mating ritual. It's lunch. I don't mate until after 2. She laughed despite herself. Owen's voice softened. Don't confuse a bad deal with no deal. If Kavanaugh is the only buyer who can move most of the fruit, walking away might feel strong right up until it feels bankrupt. That sounds like Grandpa. Grandpa would sign whatever kept him from changing. June looked at the contract. What would you do? Make them compete. With who? That's the problem. It was not an answer, but it was an honest shape around one. After the call, June carried the contract to the barn. The crew was sharpening tools for the next block. 6 weeks ago, June would have treated the buyer as an owner's problem and brought them a decision after it had been made. Tasha's open ledger had changed that. So had the speed at which red numbers became labor, parts, diesel, and branches piled in the rows. June laid the contract on a clean section of the sorting table. If I accept this, we probably have somewhere to send most of the crop, she said. If I reject it, we need buyers. A lot of them. Calvin squinted at the pages. I vote for buyers. Do you have one? No. Still my vote. Odessa removed her gloves 1 finger at a time. What's wrong with Kavanaugh? They've been underpaying and adding fees. They always underpaid. You knew? We pick peaches, June. We know what they're worth. Why didn't anybody say something? To Hollis? The question answered itself. Mateo leaned over the terms. We need their bins. They charge for the bins, Tasha said. Still need them. Alma nodded toward the abandoned sales window at the front of the barn. Its counter had been boarded over since before June began helping full-time. People used to stop here, she said. Hollis closed it because he said customers got in the way, June replied. Hollis thought everything without an engine got in the way, Mateo said. Some of the customers did steal, Dennis added. A woman put 6 peaches in her purse and told him she brought them from home. Calvin looked impressed. That is confidence. Odessa tapped the contract. How much do you have to promise them? It doesn't say. Then ask. Kavanaugh's receptionist transferred June once this time. When Mr. Kavanaugh came on the line, he sounded pleased to hear from her. That made her more cautious. I'd like to renew for 40% of our expected crop, she said. A pause. We don't generally contract partial volume. Your contract doesn't require full volume. The economics of hauling depend on scale. What's the minimum? The relationship with Hollis was based on trust. Hollis sent you 85% and got paid below the area average. Tasha looked at June sharply. Odessa's expression remained still. Mr. Kavanaugh sighed. You're new to this side of the business. No, I'm new to being the person you have to answer. The silence after that was longer. June's heart beat hard enough to make her fingertips cold. She had negotiated motel refunds, fertilizer delivery dates, and the removal of a possum from a bathroom vent. None of those people could leave 92 acres of fruit rotting on trees. Kavanaugh eventually agreed to 60%, with a slightly higher base price and one of the duplicate fees removed. He refused to budge on hauling. I'm doing this because of Hollis, he said. June looked around the barn at the 6 adults waiting. No, she said. You're doing it because you want the peaches. She ended the call before she could damage the agreement further. Calvin let out a low whistle. Just air? She asked. No, that one was judgment. The revised contract did not solve the farm's problems. It gave 40% of them a different shape. Tasha started calling restaurants from her list. June stopped at roadside markets after motel shifts, carrying pictures of the orchard and asking managers how many boxes they bought in June. Most offered politeness instead of commitments. One bakery owner said she might take 200 pounds a week if the fruit was good. A brewery in Macon wanted bruised peaches for a seasonal ale, but only at a price that barely covered picking. June wrote every possibility into the green column anyway. The orchard changed around them. Pink blossoms opened along the pruned limbs until the rose appeared lit from within. Bees moved between trees with businesslike indifference. Hollis had never praised bloom. Promises the tree can't keep, he used to say. A peach tree could set thousands of pieces of fruit and ruin every one if no one thinned them. Too many peaches meant small peaches, broken limbs, exhausted trees. Beauty was not evidence that the season would be kind. Still, on the first warm afternoon, June stood at the edge of the upper block and let herself look. The cuts had worked. Sunlight reached the centers. New growth showed red and healthy against the older wood. The rows no longer looked abandoned. Odessa came up beside her. You missed one, she said. June followed her gaze. A water sprout rose straight from the nearest limb. I was having a moment. Have it with your shears. June cut the sprout. When the 6-week guarantee ended, bloom had begun to drop, and the first tiny green fruit showed beneath the fading petals. Tasha brought the payroll ledger into the kitchen. After wages, repairs, supplies, fuel, and taxes, the operating balance had fallen below $20,000. It would fall further before any peach was large enough to sell. We can stop for 2 weeks, June said. Bring everybody back for thinning. And they do what for 2 weeks? Tasha asked. Banner Ridge might still need people, might hire them through harvest if they go. June stared at the account balance. She had promised 6 weeks because 6 weeks was the amount she could see. Now the trees required less labor for a short stretch, but the people attached to the labor still had rent, groceries, and fuel bills. Hollis would have cut the crew immediately and expected them to return when called. What work do we have? June asked. Barn needs cleaning. Greater belt needs replacing. Empty bins need repairing. The lower road washes out every hard rain. That's all money out. Yes. Any of it urgent? All of it eventually. June called everyone into the barn after lunch. I can keep full hours for 3 people, she told them, or I can give all 6 half weeks until thinning starts. I can't do both. Dennis frowned. For how long? 2 weeks, maybe 3 if the fruit set's late. Banner called me yesterday, Calvin said. The room went quiet. They still offering the higher rate? Odessa asked. Advertised, he said. This time, no one laughed. June's first impulse was to remind them that she had kept every promise. She had paid repair hours, honored breaks, and written checks when she said she would. The argument formed quickly because it was true. She did not say it. You should take work that makes sense for you, she said. I won't hold it against anybody. Calvin studied her. Would Hollis? Hollis held weather against people. That brought a few smiles. They chose half weeks, not unanimously at first. Dennis wanted full hours and asked whether June could keep him, while Alma took less. Alma told him she was not donating her paycheck to his preference. Mateo considered repair work at another farm on his off days. Tasha drew 3 possible schedules on cardboard before Odessa found one no one hated. It was not loyalty. It was negotiation, irritation, arithmetic, and trust measured in 2-week portions. June approved the schedule. On the first reduced Friday, she woke after noon to the sound of a hammer. Mateo and Calvin were repairing the abandoned sales window at the barn. June walked over in slippers and Hollis's green cap, which she had put on without noticing. I'm not paying overtime, she said. Calvin drove a nail. Good thing we're not clocked in. Then why are you here? Mateo held up a warped board. This bothered me. You drove 20 minutes because a board bothered you? He glanced toward the humming pump house. Machines talk loud when they're alone, he said. They finished the window and left before June could turn the favor into a debt. That evening, she opened it for the first time in years. Dust moved in the slanting light. Through the square opening, she could see the road, the orchard, and the first pea-sized peaches waiting on the branches. 40% of them had nowhere to go. For the first time, that looked less like a failure than a door. Tasha painted the sales window white. She did it on one of her half days and billed the farm for 2 hours, plus paint. June approved both without asking why white paint cost $29 a gallon. Because it's exterior, Tasha said. I didn't ask. Your face did. Calvin built a shelf beneath the window from leftover boards. Alma found Hollis's old hanging scale under a tarp and carried it straight to Mateo, who tested it with a 50-pound fertilizer sack. It's 6 pounds light, he said. Alma looked at June. Throw it away, June said. Hollis would have adjusted it. Hollis once adjusted a level because he didn't like what it said about the barn floor. Mateo kept the hook and threw the rest in the scrap pile. No one knew whether customers would actually come to the window. There was no sign, no register, and nothing to sell. Still, the repaired opening changed the front of the barn. It made the place appear to expect someone. The peaches grew. By the end of the reduced schedule, the fruit was the size of walnuts and crowded along branches in hard green clusters. Bloom had kept too many of its promises. Every tree had to be thinned by hand before the weight damaged the limbs and left the fruit too small for market. The crew returned to full weeks. June had kept enough money aside for thinning, though seeing the projected balance made her stomach hurt. She stood beneath a tree with Odessa while the others spread into the upper block. How many? June asked. 6 inches apart. Hollis left 4. Hollis sold small peaches. He said customers liked them for lunchboxes. He said that after the peaches came out small. Odessa twisted off 3 green fruits and dropped them into the grass. June hated the sound. The ground beneath every tree soon filled with discarded peaches, healthy fruit removed so the remaining fruit could become worth something. June knew the reason. She had done this beside Hollis for years. Knowing did not make the waste look less obscene when the farm account was losing money by the day. She left too many on her first tree. Odessa followed behind and removed half of them. You're going to thin everything I do? June asked. If you do it wrong, I own the trees. That doesn't improve your spacing. June pulled 1 peach from a cluster and held it up. This one could have been perfect. Could have been. You don't feel bad? No, not even a little? Odessa considered it. Ask me when my shoulder starts hurting. They moved down the row. Thinning was quieter than pruning. The work required judgment at every branch. Remove the smaller fruit, the damaged fruit, the fruit growing too close together, the fruit facing inward. Save what had room. Give up what did not. By lunch, June's fingers smelled sharp and green. Tasha sat on an overturned bin with the ledger open on her knees. The bakery confirmed. How much? 200 pounds a week, starting with the early varieties. Maybe more if their peach cakes sell. That's good. It's a bakery. They expect their cakes to sell. Let me have this. Tasha wrote the number in green. The brewery wanted one delivery of 1,500 pounds. 3 roadside markets had agreed to trial orders. Darlene had persuaded the owner of the Starlight to let June place order cards in the rooms, provided the cards did not promise guests a discount. He thinks discounts attract crime, Darlene had explained. To peaches, to everything. Even with the small buyers, most of the uncommitted crop had nowhere to go. June kept making calls between motel guests and farm shifts. She left messages for restaurant managers, produce stands, caterers, and a woman in Warner Robins who made preserves in a rented commercial kitchen. Sometimes people sounded interested until they heard the likely volume. Sometimes they wanted June to guarantee a price months before harvest. One man offered exposure instead of money. Can exposure pay for diesel? June asked. He told her she did not understand social media. She told him he did not understand peaches. Caroline arrived one afternoon while June was thinning the south block. Her red sedan stopped near the barn, clean enough to look misplaced among the trucks. She got out holding a canvas bag and wearing shoes unsuitable for dirt. I called, she said when June approached. My phone's in the truck. You should keep it with you. It falls out when I bend over. Caroline held up the bag. I brought lunch. For me, for whoever's hungry. Inside were chicken salad sandwiches, cut fruit, and a gallon of sweet tea. Caroline had packed paper napkins, but forgotten cups. Mateo found a sleeve of plastic ones in the barn office. Everyone gathered in the shade while Caroline arranged sandwiches on the sorting table with more care than the setting deserved. Odessa thanked her. Caroline seemed relieved to receive a task as simple as being thanked. You worked with Daddy a long time, she said. 23 years, Odessa replied. He spoke highly of you. Odessa took a bite of sandwich. June hid her smile in her cup. Caroline noticed. What? Nothing. He did. Did he use adjectives? June asked. He said she was reliable. Odessa swallowed. That was his favorite. Caroline laughed, surprising herself. For 20 minutes she was easy company. She asked Tasha about the farm books without pretending to understand them. She listened while Mateo described the pump repair. When Calvin claimed Hollis had once tried to straighten a bent trailer hitch by tying it to a pecan tree and driving away, Caroline shook her head. That was not Daddy. It was, June said. He would have used the oak. Everyone laughed except Caroline. Then she thought about it and laughed too. After lunch, the crew returned to the rows. Caroline stayed by the sorting table, folding used napkins into smaller squares. You don't have to clean, June said. I know, you could help thin. These shoes cost too much. Cash inheritance already improving your life. Caroline looked up. June regretted the sentence before it finished landing. I paid off the balance on my house, Caroline said. That's good. Yes. The quiet between them filled with sounds from the orchard. Branches shifting, buckets knocking, Calvin singing an unrecognizable chorus. Caroline ran one finger along the newly painted window frame. Mother used to sell peaches here. I remember. You were small. I remember her giving me the bruised ones. She gave everyone bruised ones. She said they were already halfway to cobbler. June looked through the window toward the road. Caroline picked at a spot of white paint on the counter. Daddy offered me the farm once. June turned, after Mother died. He said I could move back and help him run it. You never told me. It wasn't an important story. It seems relevant. I had a job in Atlanta. I had friends, a life. Caroline's mouth tightened. He didn't ask whether I wanted it. He told me what room I could use. June thought of Hollis calling her trailer temporary. What did you say? I said no. Was he angry? He didn't speak to me for 4 months. Then he called because he needed someone to bring forms to the accountant. June leaned against the table. Caroline watched the crew in the trees. I wasn't choosing money over him, June. I didn't say you were. You keep not saying things very loudly. The words were Owen's. Hearing them from Caroline made June glance away. Her aunt sighed. I'm glad you're making it work. It's been 6 weeks. I know. It isn't working yet. I know that too. Caroline picked up the empty canvas bag. Before leaving, she touched the brim of the green cap June had begun wearing most mornings. "It looks better on you," she said. June did not ask better than whom. The first peaches began showing color late in May. Not ripe, not close, but the green softened toward yellow beneath the fuzz. June walked the rows at dusk, turning fruit gently in her hand, searching for insect damage and signs of rot. The trees looked stronger than they had in February. The crop was still heavier than June liked, but Odessa insisted the spacing was right. Water reached the north block. The lower road had been graded. New belts waited beside the packing line. The forecast showed rain. June welcomed it, running the pump cost diesel, and made Mateo listen for imaginary changes in pitch. A good soaking would save money. At the Starlight that night, thunder began just before midnight. The first drop struck the lobby windows hard enough to send the bullfrog leaping from the empty pool. June watched the parking lot vanish behind gray water. Darlene called. "You seeing this?" she asked. "I have windows. There's hail west of you." June opened the weather radar. A red mass spread across the screen, moving east. "How bad?" "They're saying quarter size. Quarter-size hail would mark fruit. It might shred leaves, but a mature peach could sometimes keep growing around a scar." Thunder shook the glass. A white stone bounced beneath the motel awning, then another. Within seconds, hail hammered the metal roof so loudly June could not hear Darlene's voice. Guests opened doors along the covered walkway, staring at the parking lot. June stepped outside and picked up a piece that had rolled beneath the awning. It was larger than a quarter, nearly the size of a golf ball. Her phone buzzed against her palm. Mateo had sent a picture from the farm. White ice scattered across the dark ground, leaves already torn from the trees. June called him. "Don't go out there," she said. "Wasn't planning to." The line crackled. "How bad is it? Can't see the upper rows." A branch hit the motel roof with a hollow bang. Someone shouted from room 4. "Call me when it passes," June said. She spent the next 40 minutes moving guests away from windows and placing buckets beneath new leaks. She could do nothing for the orchard. That helplessness felt worse than fear. The peaches were hanging in the dark while the sky struck them one by one. At 2:15, the hail stopped. Darlene arrived in pajama pants beneath a raincoat and took one look at June. "Go," she said. June drove slowly through roads covered in leaves and standing water. Dawn had not begun when she reached the farm, but Mateo's truck was parked by the barn. Odessa arrived behind June, then Tasha. Calvin's headlights appeared at the bend. Nobody had been called. They carried flashlights into the upper block. The first beam caught shredded leaves and broken twigs. Small peaches lay across the ground, their pale flesh exposed where hail had split them. June reached for one still hanging. It was firm, alive, and deeply dented along one side. Behind her, Odessa moved the light to the next tree, then the next. Every peach shone back scarred. Odessa took the damaged peach from June's hand and cut it open with her pocket knife. The fruit inside was hard and white. One bruise extended beneath the skin, no deeper than her thumbnail. "Too early to know," Odessa said. June looked down the row. "Know what? What heals? What drops? What rots?" "They're all hit. Not all the same." June moved her flashlight over the branches. Some peaches had been knocked free. Others carried one deep dent, or several shallow marks. Leaves hung in green ribbons. The hail had stripped new growth from the west side of each tree, while the protected side looked almost untouched. In the lower block, the damage was lighter. The barn and a stand of pecans had broken part of the storm's force. The later variety there remained small enough that many stones had passed through the branches without striking fruit. Tasha began taking notes. "What are you writing?" June asked. "Damage by block. We can see the damage. Can you see 20 acres at once?" June opened her mouth, then closed it. Tasha divided the orchard into sections. Calvin and Dennis counted fallen fruit beneath sample trees. Alma marked broken limbs with orange tape. Mateo returned to the barn for a saw and the sprayer manual. "Why the sprayer?" June asked. "Cuts and bruises let rot in," he said. "Need fungicide after the leaves dry. Can we afford that?" Mateo looked toward the scattered fruit on the ground. "Can we afford not?" By 8, the sun had risen behind clouds, turning every piece of hail into a bright bead of water. The storm's violence looked almost pretty from a distance. June hated it for that. Tasha's first estimate was 40% loss in the upper blocks, possibly more if bruised fruit dropped. The lower blocks looked closer to 15. Fruit that remained might still ripen, but much of it would not meet the grade in Kavanaugh's contract. June called him from the barn office. Mr. Kavanaugh answered on the fourth ring. "Storm get you, you heard." It got half the county. She sent him pictures while they spoke. He was silent as he opened them. "The early crop looks rough," he said. "It's superficial on most. Can't tell from pictures. Then come look. Looking won't change grade." June gripped the phone. "The fruit isn't ripe." "Exactly. You won't know the extent until it develops. So you'll still take the contracted volume if it meets spec, and if it tastes good but carries marks. We could discuss processing grade. At what price?" He named a number so low June thought she had misheard. "That doesn't cover picking." "No, usually doesn't." "Then why would anyone sell it?" "Because leaving it on the tree costs too." He sounded neither cruel nor pleased. That made the answer harder to fight. Kavanaugh had trucks, buyers, and specifications. The storm was not his fault. The contract did not require him to rescue fruit his customers would refuse. "I'll send someone closer to harvest," he said. June looked at the small green peaches in her palm. "Don't do me a favor." "What?" "If you take them because you want them." She ended the call. Outside, the crew had begun cutting damaged limbs. June joined them. She worked through breakfast, then through the time breakfast might reasonably become lunch. The wet ground pulled at her boots. Every broken branch felt personal. At noon, sunlight broke through the clouds and the orchard became humid. Steam lifted from the rows. June removed her jacket and tied it around her waist. Odessa called a break. "I'm not hungry," June said. Wasn't a question. "The fungicide needs to go on. Mateo's mixing it. Then this block needs clearing before he starts. It'll be here in 30 minutes. June kept sawing. Odessa did not argue. She called the others to the shade and left June alone with the branch. The saw teeth jammed twice. June freed them and pulled harder. Sweat ran into her eyes. By the time the limb fell, she had used 10 minutes to do a 3-minute job and sliced the bark below the break. She stared at the ragged cut. Hollis would have said nothing at first. He would have waited until dinner, then asked whether she had been trying to kill the tree with enthusiasm. June heard his voice clearly enough to turn around. No one stood there. She carried the saw to the next row. They worked until dark. Odessa ordered Calvin and Alma home before the second fungicide tank was empty. June objected. "We need the west side finished," she said. "They've been here since before 5. So have I." Odessa's eyes moved over her face. "That isn't the argument, you think?" Mateo finished spraying after Dennis left. Tasha stayed in the office, updating the damage estimate and recalculating projected sales. At 9, she found June dragging fallen branches toward a pile. "Your motel shift starts in an hour," Tasha said. "I called Darlene. To say you quit? To say I'd be late." Tasha took the branch from her hand. "Go shower. I need the new estimates. You need soap." June wanted to fight. She had no strength left to choose words, so she went inside. Darlene took one look at her when she arrived and pointed toward the back office. "Sit. I'm 40 minutes late. You are 2 hours early for tomorrow's bad decision." June sat. Darlene placed a paper bag in front of her. Inside was a turkey sandwich, an apple, and 2 oatmeal cookies. "I'm not hungry. Eat one thing, or I call Odessa." June looked up. "How do you have Odessa's number? She called here looking for you in March. Why? She wanted to know if I could stop scheduling you 5 nights. June stared at her. "I told her you're an adult and I'm your manager, not your mother." "Good. Then I stop scheduling you 5 nights?" June unwrapped the sandwich. At midnight, the motel phone woke her. She had fallen asleep upright in the office chair with half the sandwich in her hand. Room 23 needed a plunger. She handled the problem, checked in a couple traveling from Savannah, and changed a bulb outside room 6. At dawn, she drove back to the farm. Every truck was already there. The sight should have comforted her. Instead, guilt tightened across her chest. They had other options. They had come because she had promised work, and the work now hung damaged on trees with no profitable buyer. June parked beside the barn. Tasha met her at the office door. "The later blocks may cover the Kavanaugh volume if grade holds." "What about the early crop? We sell it somewhere else." "To who?" "We haven't asked everybody. We've asked enough." "No, you've left messages." "That's different." June stepped around her. "Where's Odessa?" "South Rose." The temperature climbed fast. By 10, it had reached 87, unusual for late May. Humidity held beneath the leaves. June worked beside Calvin, removing storm-damaged shoots. At 11, Odessa called water. June kept moving. At 12:30, the packing barn felt like an oven. Mateo and Dennis were replacing the grater belt. Tasha sorted sample fruit from the least damaged trees, lining the green peaches along the table, according to severity. Alma came in with her face flushed. "Calvin's dizzy," she said. June looked toward the orchard. "Where is he?" "Odessa sent him home." "Home?" "He couldn't keep water down. We have electrolyte packets. He needs air conditioning." June crossed the barn. Odessa entered through the opposite door, carrying Calvin's pruning shears. "We're already behind," June said. "Then we'll be behind." He could have rested in the office. He wanted to go. "Dennis can't run the sprayer and repair the grater." Then the grater waits. June heard her own voice rising and could not seem to lower it. Everything waits. The trees wait, the pump waits, Kavanaugh waits, and every time we wait, something costs more. The barn went still. Odessa placed the shears on the table. "Alma's done too," she said. "Alma said she was fine." "No, Alma said Calvin was dizzy." "You didn't ask about Alma." June looked at Alma. Sweat had soaked the collar of her shirt. Her hands shook slightly as she opened a water bottle. Shame arrived as anger because anger was easier to hold. "I'm trying to save everybody's jobs," June said. Odessa's expression hardened. "By proving you can work us into the ground? That's not what I'm doing. You think if you suffer enough, nobody gets to question you. I think the crop is ruined. Then say you're scared. I'm not scared. You look terrified." June reached for the edge of the sorting table. The barn shifted sideways. For one absurd second, she thought the soft dining room floor had somehow followed her outside. Then the table slipped from beneath her hand. She heard Tasha say her name. The concrete rose. June woke on a narrow cot in the barn office with a wet towel across her forehead. The overhead fan turned slowly, clicking on every third rotation. Odessa sat in Hollis's desk chair. "How long?" June asked. 20 minutes, I fainted." "You made a theatrical descent." June pushed herself upright. Her head throbbed. "I'm fine." Odessa laughed once without humor. June looked toward the office door. "Where is everyone?" "Lunch." Dennis took Alma home. "Mateo's getting more ice. The spray can wait." I shouldn't have said no. June stopped. Odessa leaned forward, forearms on her knees. "Hollis nearly killed himself every season. Made everybody else feel lazy for wanting to survive it. Don't put on his hat and call that leadership." June touched her head. The green cap was gone. It sat on the desk beside the farm ledger. "I didn't ask them to stay today," she said. "You think that means you don't owe them care?" "No. You think doing every job yourself makes you good?" June looked down at her dirty hands. "I don't know how else to prove I can do this." Odessa's face changed, not softer, sadder. "We didn't come back because you can lift more branches," she said. "We came back because you told the truth. The truth is we may not have enough to pay everyone through harvest." "Then tell that truth too." June pressed the towel to her forehead. "Owen was right." "About what?" "Hollis left a problem and knew I'd volunteer. Maybe." The answer hurt more than reassurance would have. Odessa stood. "But Hollis isn't the one keeping us here." She left the office door open behind her. On the sorting table outside, Tasha had cut 6 hail-damaged peaches in half. The flesh beneath the scars was clean, not ripe, not ruined. June sat beneath the clicking fan until her hands stopped shaking. Then she took Hollis's cap from the desk, folded the brim flat, and placed it in the bottom drawer. The cap remained in the drawer. June left the office without it and found the crew sitting beneath the loading awning. Mateo had returned with 2 bags of ice and a case of sports drinks. Calvin was back despite being sent home, wearing a clean shirt and looking embarrassed by the attention. "You should be in air conditioning," June said. "So should Peaches," he replied. "Nobody asked them." Odessa gave him a look. "I'm not working," he added. "Came for my shears." June stood in front of them. She had imagined an apology while sitting beneath the office fan. It had been composed, responsible, and completely useless. "I was wrong," she said. Nobody rushed to rescue her from the silence. "Calvin, I should have noticed you were sick. Alma, I should have asked how you were. Odessa, you were right to send them home. I shouldn't have argued." Alma twisted the cap off her drink. "No." June waited. You shouldn't have made us stand there while you argued, Alma said, like we weren't part of it. You're right, I know. Calvin studied his shoes. I should have said something sooner. Odessa shook her head. We are not dividing blame until everybody gets a piece. June nodded. You and Alma are paid for the full day. We stop at 11:30 when the heat index is over 95. Mandatory water every hour. Tasha posts it. If I ignore it, you stop me. Mateo raised his hand. June looked at him. Can we use a hose? You can use reasonable force. What about the pressure washer? Reasonable force, Calvin whispered. That was not a no. They returned to work after the temperature dropped. June did not. Odessa sent her into the farmhouse with orders to eat, shower, and sleep for 4 hours. June objected only once, which was apparently still once too many. She woke in Hollis's bedroom at 7 that evening. Her boots were on the floor where she had dropped them, and the green cap was not on the mirror. For a moment, June panicked. Then she remembered the office drawer. The feeling that followed was not relief exactly. The cap had become heavier over the months Hollis was sick. Every time she wore it, someone mistook resemblance for readiness. She showered and returned to the barn. Tasha sat in the office alone, updating the ledger. How much did my fainting cost? June asked. Emotionally or hourly? Hourly. $216, including ice. June sat in the other chair. Put it under owner stupidity. I put it under heat interruption. Less satisfying, more useful. Tasha turned the ledger toward her. The loss estimate had increased. More bruised fruit had begun to drop, and the damaged early blocks would require extra sorting. Kavanaugh's representative had reviewed the photographs and confirmed what June already feared. Visible scars would lower the fruit below contract grade. They'll take some for processing, Tasha said, at 4 cents less than picking costs. Yes. What if we divert the clean later crop to Kavanaugh and sell the scarred fruit ourselves? We have to sell it fast. Early peaches don't wait for marketing. June opened the list of smaller buyers. The brewery remained interested in 1,500 pounds, scars included. The bakery would take fruit after June delivered a sample. 2 roadside markets had reduced their trial orders after hearing about the hail. The preserves maker in Warner Robins, Renee Vickers, had answered Tasha's call and said she could rent June time in a licensed kitchen, but could not promise to buy the fruit herself. It was not enough. Tasha closed the ledger. The first big picking payroll hits before Kavanaugh pays for the later crop. How short? If the early fruit brings processing price, about $11,000. June stared at the desk. If we sell some direct, depends how much. Enough. That's not a number. It's the number I have. Tasha leaned back. You need another source of cash. June's motel wages would not touch the gap. Her personal savings had fallen below 1,000 after moving expenses and groceries. The farm had equity, but the existing operating loan already sat against it, and borrowing more before proving the crop could sell would deepen the same hole. Her phone rang. Owen. June almost let it go to voicemail. Then she wondered whether Caroline had told him about the storm or her collapse. She answered. How bad? He asked. Hello to you too. Caroline saw pictures online. June had not posted any pictures. Calvin had, along with a caption that said the sky had thrown rocks at his employment. We lost part of the early crop, June said. How much? Still counting? Are you at the house? Why? I'm at the gate. His truck appeared beside the barn a minute later. It was newer than June had realized, deep blue and too clean for the road after a storm. Owen got out holding a folder. Tasha glanced at it, then at June. I'm going home. You don't have to. I know. She took the ledger with her. Owen watched her leave. She always carried the books. She runs them. I thought you ran them. That's why she runs them. He followed June into the farmhouse. On the kitchen table, Caroline's empty tea jug waited to be returned. June moved it aside. Owen placed the folder on the table, but did not open it. You look awful, he said. Family gift. Caroline said you fainted. Caroline wasn't here. She talks to Odessa. Apparently everyone talks to Odessa. She gives clear answers. June sat. What's in the folder? Owen remained standing, a way out. No, you don't know what it is. It's in a folder, and you called it a way out. He pulled a chair back, but did not sit. I'll buy the farm, June laughed. Owen did not. The laugh stopped. With what? My inheritance and a loan. You don't want the farm. I'd sell most of the equipment. lease the good acreage to Bell Orchard, and list the rest when the market improves. You have a whole plan. I made calls about my land, about an asset that may be foreclosed if you miss the operating note. The note isn't due until after harvest, which you just lost. Part of it. Owen finally sat and opened the folder. He had printed estimated closing costs, the remaining loan balance, and an offer price $200,000 below the appraisal. June's face went hot. You think it lost half its value in 3 months? I think the appraisal assumed a functioning operation. It is functioning. You passed out in a barn. That was not a mechanical failure. I'm not making fun of you. No, you're pricing it? Owen pressed both palms to the table. I would pay off the farm note. You'd walk away with enough to clear your debts, put a down payment on a house, and stop working nights. How generous. It's more than an auction would leave you. There is no auction. Not yet. June pushed the folder back. He did not take it. You said the crew may not have enough work. I said no such thing to you. Caroline talks to Odessa. Yes. Owen's mouth tightened. Everybody in this family knows when you're drowning except you. June looked at the numbers again, despite herself. The offer was insulting compared with the appraisal. Compared with the $11,000 payroll gap, it was a door standing wide open. She imagined telling Darlene she no longer needed motel hours. She imagined sleeping through an entire night. She imagined every worker receiving final checks on time because Owen's purchase would pay off the loan and end the season before it failed. The relief came so quickly it frightened her. What happens to the trees? She asked. Bell would keep the strongest blocks. And the rest? June. What happens? They'd probably clear the older acreage. The kitchen floor tilted toward the wall. June placed one foot against the table leg. Owen's voice softened. I know what you gave up to take this place. No, you know the amount. I'm trying to give some of it back. By buying it for less than it's worth. By buying it for what it can pay for right now. Hollis would have thrown the folder onto the porch. Hollis would have called Owen a scavenger, refused the offer, and borrowed twice as much at a worse rate out of pride. June did not want to make Hollis's decision simply because it was opposite Owen's. I need a week, she said. Owen sat back. That's not a no. It isn't a yes. First picking starts when? 10 days, maybe 12. Take 3 days. I said a week. The offer doesn't improve while fruit drops. You came here to rescue me and put an expiration date on it? I came here because if I wait until you ask, it'll be too late. June closed the folder. 1 week. Owen stood. At the doorway, he stopped. The watch is still on the dresser, he said. I know. I had it fixed. June looked at him. Why leave it here? He shrugged. It sounded loud in my apartment. After he drove away, June carried his folder to the barn office. She set it in the bottom drawer beside Hollis's cap and closed both of them into darkness. The first early peaches softened 5 days later. June picked one from a hail-damaged tree before dawn. Its skin was dented and rough, with a brown crescent along one side. She cut it open at the kitchen counter. Yellow flesh, clean pit, juice beneath the knife. She bit into one half. The peach was sweet enough to make her eyes close. At 7, she carried a box to the bakery. At 9, the owner ordered 300 pounds instead of 2. Renee Vickers tasted one and agreed to help turn the softest fruit into peach butter if June paid for kitchen time and supplied labor. The brewery increased its order after Mateo delivered samples. It still was not enough. June returned to find Calvin leaning a piece of plywood against the repaired sales window. In red paint, he had written, Odessa stood behind him with her arms folded. Too much? Calvin asked. Too many words, she said. Tasha took the brush and crossed out the second line. Beneath ugly peaches, she wrote, Sweet inside. They opened the window with 12 boxes. For 15 minutes, nobody stopped. Then a woman in hospital scrubs turned off the road, parked beneath the pecans, and bought 2 boxes after June cut a sample over the sorting table. By noon, all 12 were gone. The green column gained $384. It was not $11,000. It was not rescue. But it was the first money the farm had made because June refused to hide what the storm had done. Tasha counted the money twice. Why? June asked. Because Calvin worked the register. I gave change accurately. You gave one man a peach for free. He looked sad. He had resting sad face, Calvin said. That's different. The next morning, the woman in hospital scrubs returned with 3 co-workers. They bought 8 boxes between them. A truck driver stopped because he thought the sign said, "Ugly Reaches," and wanted to know what that meant. After Mateo explained, he bought a box anyway. By Friday, they had to make a second sign. "Peaches this way," it said, with an arrow pointing toward the barn. Calvin added, "Yes, we know they're ugly beneath it." Tasha crossed that out. People came because the peaches were cheaper than the polished fruit at grocery stores. They came because Caroline posted a picture of a sliced one on her social media page and called it the sweetest peach she had eaten in years. They came because the bakery put Mercer peach cake on a chalkboard near its register. Mostly they came because ripe peaches had a way of selling the next box once the first box reached a kitchen. The sales window began opening at 8. Tasha organized 3 grades: firm fruit for boxes, soft fruit for immediate use, and bruised fruit headed to the brewery or Renee's kitchen. Anything rotten went into compost. Anything dropped from a tree stayed out of the food stream entirely. June tried to sell the soft fruit for nearly nothing. Tasha changed the price. "These won't last 2 days," June argued. "They won't have to. People are buying them today. What if they stop? Then we lower it tomorrow. That feels dishonest. That's called pricing. Hollis charged one amount all summer. Hollis got one amount all summer from Kavanaugh. It was a bad amount." June reluctantly accepted the increase. At noon, a restaurant manager drove from Macon and asked for 400 pounds of ripe fruit by the following morning. June said yes before checking the picking schedule. Tasha waited until the manager left. "We don't have 400 pounds ready," she said. "The upper block has plenty. The upper block has 260 pounds ready, maybe 300 if we pick hard. We can pull from the east rows, not without sending him fruit that's green at the pit." He said ripe. That is generally what ripe means. June rubbed her forehead. "I didn't want to lose the order, so you took an order we can't fill. I'll find the fruit." Odessa was less diplomatic. "No," she said when June proposed an early start. "It's one morning. We already start at 6. 5 then. People need sleep. I'll pick the extra. You fainted 6 days ago. I'm aware. Then be aware quieter." They compromised on 300 pounds. June called the restaurant manager and admitted she had promised more than the farm could deliver. She expected him to cancel. Instead, he took the smaller order and asked whether she could guarantee another 300 the following week. This time, June checked with Tasha before answering. The first kitchen night began after the sales window closed. Renee Vickers rented a licensed commissary behind a catering hall in Warner Robins. She was a compact woman with muscular forearms, white hair cut close to her head, and no patience for romance about canning. "Peach butter is heat, sugar, time, and paperwork," she told June. "If anybody says love, hand them a mop." The kitchen contained 2 steel kettles large enough to bathe in, a mechanical peeler, racks of sterilized jars, and a floor drain Renee valued more than most of the equipment. June, Tasha, and Alma brought 600 pounds of soft peaches in stackable crates. For 5 hours they washed, peeled, cut, cooked, filled, wiped, labeled, and washed again. Renee inspected every lid. "Sticky," she said, handing one back to June. "It's peach butter. The inside can be sticky. The outside is a product." At 1 in the morning, June rested both hands on the stainless steel counter. Tasha pointed at her. "Sit." "I'm fine." Alma turned toward the wall where Mateo had hung a small coil of hose before leaving. June sat. They produced 240 jars. After kitchen rental, jars, labels, sugar, and Renee's fee, the profit would be modest unless they sold directly. The work had saved fruit that would otherwise bring nothing, but June understood why Hollis had avoided processing. Every peach became 10 tasks. Renee drove a pallet jack beneath the finished cases. "What are you calling it?" she asked. "Mercer peach butter," June said. "Original? Do you have something better?" "Ugly butter?" Tasha shook her head. "Absolutely not." Alma leaned against the counter. "Sweet inside. They use that." Darlene put 12 jars behind the Starlight desk with a handwritten price card. The motel owner objected until the first guest bought 3, at which point he announced he had always supported local products. June paid the farm for the jars before taking them to the motel. Tasha watched her enter the transaction. "You don't have to buy your own inventory," she said. I'm selling it through another business. You're doing that business a favor. The business lets me sleep in its office. That is not compensation. It is when room 18 checks in. The first direct sales week brought in $4,800, more than June had hoped, less than the farm needed. Picking and sorting costs rose with the damaged fruit. For every marketable box, the crew handled another half box that went to processing or compost. The greater belt held, but one roller cracked. The cold room refused to stay below 48 degrees on hot afternoons, forcing them to move fruit quickly. Kavanaugh's inspector arrived wearing clean boots and carrying a plastic gauge. He cut samples, measured firmness, and rejected most of the upper block without apology. The later fruit looked acceptable, though he warned June that the contract allowed deductions if hail scars became visible as the peaches colored. "We'll meet grade," June said. He glanced at the scarred boxes lined beneath the sales window. "Lot of work for roadside money." "It's money," he shrugged and left. Owen's week expired while June was loading bakery boxes into her car. He arrived at the barn in his blue truck and parked beside a line of customers. The sight seemed to irritate him, though June could not tell whether that was because he had to wait or because the farm looked busier than he expected. Tasha was running the window. "Family discount?" Owen asked her. "No. I'm the owner's brother. That's why I know you can afford full price." He bought one box. June finished loading the car and met him near the office. She had brought his folder from the bottom drawer. Hollis's cap remained there. "I'm not accepting," she said. Owen took the folder, but did not look inside. "You made 11,000? "Not yet." "How much?" "That's farm business. You showed the crew. The crew works here. I'm the one offering to keep you from losing it. And I'm saying no." His gaze shifted toward the sales window. Calvin was carrying boxes to a sedan. Alma sorted fruit beneath the awning. Mateo drove the tractor in from the upper block with full bins on the trailer. "How long can this last?" Owen asked. "Early harvest is 3 weeks. I mean you." June felt the answer in her shoulders, hands, and the ache behind her eyes. "I don't know. That should bother you." "It does." "Then why are you acting like this is good news?" "I'm not. I'm acting like uncertainty isn't the same as failure." Owen looked down at the folder. "You think I want to own this place?" "No, I don't. I'd rather put the money into the firm. Then do that. The closing deadline's next month." His voice carried more frustration than the sentence deserved. June understood. If she accepted, Owen would postpone his own plan and use most of his inheritance to absorb hers. He would call it practical, because calling it love would make both of them uncomfortable. She leaned against the office door. "Why did you make the offer?" she asked. "I told you." "No, you told me what you do with the acreage. That isn't the same thing." Owen stared across the orchard. "When Mom got sick, you kept saying everything would be fine," he said. June went still. "You were 19, he continued. "You took shifts, drove her to appointments, cleaned the house, made lists. Everybody praised you for being strong. Then she died, and you went straight to Grandpa because he needed help. I didn't go straight to him. You were here 3 days after the funeral. He was alone. So were you." The work sounds continued around them, boxes sliding, tractor idling, Tasha calling out a total at the register. Owen tightened his grip on the folder. "I thought, if you took the money, you might finally choose something that didn't need you." June looked toward the damaged upper block. "Maybe I don't know how," she said. His face softened. "That's what scares me." She expected the admission to weaken her. Instead, it made the choice clearer. "I'm still saying no. I know." Owen carried the peach box to his truck. Before getting in, he turned back. "If you change your mind, call me. The amount may change." "That sounds like a threat. It's accounting. You're terrible at rescue. I'm not much better at making." He drove away. The farm made the next payroll, not comfortably. Tasha scheduled direct deposits only after the sales window money cleared, and June watched the account until every payment posted. She had $11 left in her personal checking after groceries and the electric bill, but the crew was paid. The following morning, Tasha placed a new sheet on the barn wall. It showed incoming orders, available fruit, picking assignments, packing hours, and cash due dates. Mateo added equipment maintenance beneath it. Odessa wrote mandatory breaks in thick black marker. June added nothing. "What's wrong?" Tasha asked. "I'm admiring. Do it while moving. We need boxes." June carried boxes. The repaired sales window could not handle the line that Saturday. They opened the loading door and arranged folding tables beneath the awning. Darlene arrived with a cash box and announced that motel management experience qualified her for produce. "It does not," Tasha said. "It qualifies me for people. That may be worse." Darlene worked the second register anyway. Late in the afternoon, a thunderstorm formed west of the orchard. June saw the dark clouds and felt her body tighten. Odessa noticed. "Rain," she said. "You don't know that. No hail in the forecast." "There wasn't last time." Odessa looked up at the sky. "You planning to argue with it?" June exhaled. "No, good. Take your break." June sat beneath the awning with a paper cup of water. The crew kept working around her, not faster because she had stopped, and not slower because she watched. The storm passed north. At closing, only 7 boxes remained. Tasha counted the day's receipts and wrote the number in green. June did not ask whether it was enough to save the farm. She had learned to ask smaller, more useful questions. "Can we pick tomorrow's orders before the heat comes up?" Odessa checked the board. "If everybody starts at 6. 6, June agreed. Nobody needed her to start at 5. At 6 the next morning, every name on Tasha's board had a place beside it. Odessa assigned rows. Calvin and Dennis picked. Alma checked each basket before it reached the tractor. Mateo moved full bins to the barn and watched the grader for the slightest change in sound. Tasha packed restaurant orders before opening the sales window. June went wherever the board left a gap. At 9, that meant unloading empty boxes. At 10, it meant driving Peaches to the bakery. By noon, she was at the window explaining for the 14th time that hail marks did not mean the fruit had gone bad. "Looks like it lost a fight," an older man said, turning one peach in his hand. It did. Who won? The sky? He bought 2 boxes. The early harvest left juice on every surface. It attracted yellow jackets, stained shirts, and filled the barn with a sweetness so thick June could taste it before she came through the door. Soft peaches had to be moved the same day. Ripe peaches had to be moved by tomorrow. Every box waited for exactly as long as it wanted, and no longer. For 10 days, the farm lived according to that clock. The second kitchen run produced peach butter and a thin preserve Renee refused to label jam. "Jam sets," she said, dragging a spoon through the ice cream in the motel lobby, and sold 9 jars to guests who had come in looking for the vending machine. When the later blocks began to ripen, Kavanaugh sent 3 trucks and stacks of Blue Spectre accepted it. The price remained lower than June wanted, and the deductions still appeared, but the volume gave the farm what roadside boxes could not. Thousands of pounds moved in a day. One deduction appeared twice on the first settlement. June called. The accounts clerk said the system generated it automatically. "Can the system ungenerate it?" June asked. The clerk promised to review it. June called the next morning, then after lunch. On the 3rd day, the money reappeared in the farm account. Tasha printed the corrected statement and pinned it beside the sales board. "Decoration?" June asked. "Education? For who?" "Anybody who thinks calling twice is rude." The operating balance rose, fell on payroll day, then rose again. Every increase felt temporary because it was. Diesel invoices arrived. The cold room compressor failed during the hottest week and cost $1,900 to repair. A load of rejected fruit had to be hauled back from Kavanaugh because the driver had mixed bins from 2 blocks. Nothing happened cleanly. Still, every worker was paid on time. The last major picking day began in darkness. Headlamps moved between the trees. By sunrise, the air smelled of dust and ripe fruit. June worked beside Odessa in a row Hollis had planted 31 years earlier. The trees were too tall and tired, their bark rough with old disease scars. They had produced unevenly, even before the storm. "This block's finished," Odessa said. June reached for another peach. "It gave us 400 boxes. Should have given 8. We can prune harder." "We did. Fertilizer? Won't make them young." June twisted the peach free. It was smaller than her fist. "Some can stay." Some. The rest would have to be removed before spring. June had known that since February. Knowledge did not prevent grief from behaving like surprise. Hollis had planted those trees with her mother. June had photographs of Ellen standing in the raw rows, her hair tied back with a bandana and one foot resting on a shovel. Taking out the block felt like erasing evidence that they had once worked side by side. Odessa read the resistance on her face. "Dead wood charges rent," she said. That sounds like something you prepared. I've been waiting 3 months. June dropped the peach into her basket. Give me until fall. Fall, Odessa agreed. The harvest ended with 47 boxes left in the cold room, most too soft for shipping. June set the price low and opened the window on a Tuesday without advertising. By afternoon, only 6 remained. Caroline arrived at 4 and bought all 6. What are you doing with that many? June asked. Freezing some. You don't cook. I can operate a freezer. Caroline lifted a box into her trunk and looked toward the nearly empty orchard. You made it, she said. June glanced at the barn, the loader with a hydraulic leak, and the invoices on Tasha's desk. We picked it. Isn't that the same? No. Caroline waited, but June did not explain. The final Kavanaugh payment came 3 weeks later. Tasha closed the sales window, locked the cash box in the office, and spent an entire morning reconciling the season. June sat across from her while rain tapped the barn roof. How bad? She asked. Tasha turned the ledger. After wages, taxes, supplies, repairs, packing, kitchen rental, jars, fuel, insurance, and every other expense they had remembered, the farm had enough to make the operating note payment. It also had enough to cover property tax and carry the minimum winter maintenance. There was no meaningful profit. June received no salary for 7 months of work, but the loan would not default. She stared at the figure until it blurred. Did you include the duplicate deduction? She asked. Yes. The restaurant payment from last Friday? Yes. Renee's kitchen deposit? Yes, June. So, that's real? That is what numbers are for. June laughed once, then her face folded without permission. Tasha looked alarmed. I'm fine, June said, wiping her cheeks. I didn't say anything. You looked it. I was deciding whether this required a hug. It does not. Good. Tasha slid a box of tissues across the desk. June paid the note the next morning. The confirmation page contained no music, no congratulatory message, not even a properly centered heading. She printed it anyway. The first season did not end so much as lose volume. The orchard grew quieter. Dennis took winter work at a warehouse. Alma picked up shifts in a commercial laundry. Calvin went south for pecan harvest and promised to return if nobody discovered his singing. Odessa stayed 2 days a week to mark trees and plan pruning. Mateo worked maintenance whenever there was enough money to pay him. Tasha closed out taxes, managed preserve orders, and spent increasing amounts of time measuring the front half of the barn. What are you doing? June asked. Seeing if shelves fit? We don't own shelves. We own wood. That wood holds up part of the office. Different wood. They converted the sales area without pretending it was a renovation. Mateo sealed the worst roof leak. June and Tasha painted the walls the same white as the window. Darlene donated a metal display rack the Starlight had used for tourist brochures until someone decided Fort Valley did not require tourism. The rack leaned. So does the floor, June said. They complement each other. They stocked peach butter, dessert sauce, preserves Renee made from frozen fruit, local honey bought on consignment, and bags of pecans from Calvin's winter employer. Sales were slow but steady enough to pay Tasha for market hours on Fridays and Saturdays. June reduced her motel schedule to 2 nights. Darlene pretended to object. You're abandoning hospitality. I've seen what people do to towels. Then you know hospitality needs you. The first Tuesday June did not report to the Starlight. She woke at 2 in the morning anyway. The farmhouse was silent. Without Hollis's oxygen machine, his cough, or the pump running on summer timers, every room seemed to listen. June walked to the barn in pajamas and a coat. The office drawer still held the green cap. She opened it, touched the brim, and closed it again. Owen's repaired watch sat on the farmhouse dresser. It kept accurate time now, ticking loudly enough that June sometimes shut it in the drawer while she slept. Owen had not returned for it. At Thanksgiving, June carried 3 jars of peach butter to Caroline's house. Wade brought wine. Owen arrived from Macon in a shirt with the logo of the claims adjustment firm embroidered over the pocket. He had invested after all. How much of it do you own? Wade asked. Enough to lose sleep. Caroline served turkey 30 minutes late and blamed the oven. Though everyone had watched her forget to turn it on, they ate without Hollis at the head of the table. Wade asked whether the farm had made money. Owen kicked him under the table. What? Wade said. It's a farm question. We covered the note, June answered. That's good. It's survival, also good. Wade raised his glass. June expected Owen to ask if she regretted refusing his offer. He did not. After dinner, he helped her load empty jars into her car. "You left the watch," she said. "I know. It works now. I know. You want it back?" He considered. Not yet. She did not ask why. In December, they removed 83 trees from the old block. Mateo rented an excavator for one day. The machine pulled roots from the ground with terrible ease. June stood beside Odessa, marking which trees might survive and which had to go. At the first one Hollis had planted with Ellen, June raised her hand. Mateo stopped the machine. "You want to keep it?" Odessa asked. The tree had produced 26 peaches that summer. Half were smaller than market grade. Canker darkened the trunk. "No," June said. Mateo lowered the bucket. The roots came up, holding red clay. June looked away only once. They could not afford to replant the entire block. Tasha's projections allowed for 8 acres of young trees if they staggered purchases and performed most of the planting themselves. They selected 3 varieties that would ripen at different times, extending the direct sales season instead of flooding the barn all at once. It was not bigger, it was more deliberate. Winter passed in cuts, invoices, cold mornings, and the stubborn work of improving things no customer would notice. Mateo rebuilt the greater housing. Odessa redesigned the pruning map. Tasha negotiated jar prices and built a market schedule. June repaired the farmhouse floor with Owen, who arrived one Saturday carrying lumber and refused to call the visit emotional. When Peach Bloom returned, the trees opened pink across the rows. The young block stood bare and thin at the edge of the older orchard, each new tree no higher than June's shoulder. The farm still owed money. The farmhouse roof still leaked near the chimney. But the pump started without screaming. One morning, June came into the barn and found Tasha holding a printed notice. "Banner Ridge is raising wages," she said. "How much?" $1.75 an hour. June looked toward the orchard, where Odessa, Mateo, Alma, Calvin, and Dennis had returned for pruning. "That's more than we can match, I know." Tasha turned the notice over. On the back, someone had written all 6 of their names. Tasha laid the notice on Hollis's old desk. "They put them there?" June asked, pointing to the names. "Banner's field supervisor did." "Why?" "Priority hires." The handwriting was neat. Odessa Pike, Mateo Ruiz, Tasha Green, Calvin Ross, Alma Reed, Dennis Cobb. Beside the names, someone had written, "Experienced Mercer Team." June read the phrase twice. Banner Ridge had not called them Hollis's crew. It had called them Mercers, as if the farm itself had trained and owned them, as if experience could be packed into blue bins and hauled down the road. "They're offering a full season?" June asked. "March through August? 35-hour weekly minimum once thinning starts. That's better than last year. For them or us?" "For them." Tasha watched her. June turned the notice over again, hoping for some weakness in the offer. There was none. Banner had newer equipment, more acreage, and enough buyers to move fruit without opening a roadside window. The hourly increase was real. The minimum hours were in writing. When do they need an answer? Friday. It was Tuesday. June looked through the office door. Calvin was on a ladder in the first row, singing something about a woman in Tallahassee who had taken his wallet and improved his credit score. Dennis shouted that the rhyme did not work. Alma told both of them to cut wood. "Who's considering it?" June asked. "All of us." The honesty landed cleanly. June nodded. "You should." Tasha frowned. "That's your response? What am I supposed to say? Something less immediate. I can't match $1.75. "I know. I'm not going to ask anybody to stay because we had one difficult year together." "Good. Then why are you looking at me like that?" "Because there's a difference between not manipulating people and pushing them out before they decide." June looked down at the notice. Tasha closed the office door against Calvin's singing. "We need to know what you can offer," she said, "not what you can't." They spent the morning with the ledger. The winter market had done better than projected, but not dramatically. Peach butter and preserves could carry a few paid hours, not an entire crew. Advance orders from the bakery, brewery, and restaurants were stronger. Roadside sales might increase if the season stayed clean. Might was not payroll. June considered raising the operating loan. Tasha drew a line through the idea. You don't get to borrow money, so nobody has to make a hard choice. It could cover the wage difference. Until a pump breaks. The pump is healthy. The pump is elderly and dramatic. June leaned back. You sound like me. I read the notes. They could afford a 75-cent increase. They could guarantee 32 hours during pruning and thinning, 40 during harvest. Tasha's projections allowed a direct sales bonus based on actual receipts above a fixed threshold. If the roadside market repeated the previous summer, the bonus would narrow the difference with Banner. If direct sales grew, it might close it entirely. If they failed, the hourly wage remained protected. Only the bonus disappeared. What about winter? June asked. For all 6? For whoever wants it. We don't have 12-month work for 6. We have books and market for you, equipment for Mateo, field planning for Odessa. That's 3, I know. Saying it aloud felt like choosing who mattered most. Tasha seemed to understand. Seasonal doesn't mean disposable. No. Then put the return dates in writing. Give Calvin, Alma, and Dennis first refusal on next year's positions. Does first refusal pay a January electric bill? No. June rubbed her forehead. The farm could not become everything everyone needed simply because June wanted to deserve them. That was another form of promising 400 pounds when only 300 were ripe. She printed the best offer the farm could safely make. Then she carried it to the loading platform, where everyone sat during the morning break. Odessa read first. She passed it to Mateo without commenting. Calvin reached for it. Does this contain a desperate emotional appeal? No. Shame. I'm vulnerable to those. Alma read over his shoulder. Dennis waited until the page reached him, then studied it longer than the others had. June kept her hands in her pockets. I can guarantee what's on the page, she said. I can't guarantee the bonus because it depends on direct sales. Tasha can show you the calculation. We helped write it, Tasha said. Calvin looked up. Conflict of interest. I'm choosing too. The joke left his face. June continued. Banner is a good job. If any of you take it, you leave with my recommendation and whatever schedule you need to make the switch. I mean that. Dennis tapped the page. 32 hours doesn't get me where I need to be, I know. Banner says 35 minimum and likely 45. I can't promise 45 outside harvest. Can you give me repair work with Mateo? Mateo answered before June could. If you learn, I know engines. You know how to complain near engines. That's the first step. June looked at Tasha. Tasha did not rescue her with a figure. I can give you 6 repair hours every other week until thinning, June said. After that, full field schedule. Dennis did the math in his head. Paid at field rate, repair assistant rate, 50 cents more. Mateo looked offended. I don't get an assistant. You do if he stays. I want veto power. Dennis smiled. I feel wanted. Odessa folded the page into quarters. When are you naming a field manager? She asked. June blinked. I thought everybody knew. Knowing isn't a title. Hollis didn't use titles. Hollis also didn't pay repair hours. June glanced around the group. You want the title? I want the authority. Heat stop. Row assignments. Harvest timing. I don't want to argue with you in front of 6 people when somebody needs to go home. The shame of that day returned, but it no longer arrived disguised as anger. You have it, June said. Put it on paper. Tasha took out her pen. Mateo wanted authority over maintenance schedules and permission to stop equipment he considered unsafe. Tasha wanted the market and books recognized as operations work, not something she performed between real farm jobs. Alma wanted schedules posted by Friday for the following week. Calvin wanted paid time when rain interrupted picking after he had already driven in. Dennis wanted his repair hours. None of the requests involved love. That steadied June more than any promise of loyalty could have. They changed the offer, not recklessly. Tasha refused 2 ideas. June refused 1. Odessa crossed out as needed wherever it appeared. Those words mean whenever the owner feels guilty, she said. By lunch, the agreement looked less like Hollis's farm, with better manners, and more like something that could function without everybody waiting for June to decide. They had until Friday. June did not ask for answers sooner. Wednesday passed with no one mentioning Banner. On Thursday, Colvin received a call while sharpening shears and walked beyond the barn to take it. He returned silent. At the Starlight that night, June checked in a traveling salesman who insisted room 14 had once contained a different painting. She found 3 towels in the lost and found closet, sold 2 jars of peach butter, and tried not to check her phone every 4 minutes. Darlene watched her from the office doorway. You waiting for a man? 6 agricultural employees. More expensive. They have another offer? Better? Yes. Then why wouldn't they take it? June looked at her. Darlene shrugged. You wanted comfort. Call Caroline. You want an answer? Answer the question. Because our hours may be steadier, because the bonus could close the wage gap, because they know the work, because you treat them well, that should be minimum, not a benefit. It should. Darlene folded a stack of registration cards. Minimums are rarer than they ought to be. Friday morning, Odessa arrived first. She parked beside the barn, carried her coffee to the loading platform, and sat without opening the tool cage. June joined her. You decide? She asked. Yes. Odessa drank her coffee. June waited. Don't hover, Odessa said. I'm sitting. You're hovering from the waist up. Mateo arrived next, then Alma. Calvin's truck came around the bend with Dennis in the passenger seat. Tasha walked from the farmhouse carrying the ledger. No one went to the orchard. The six stood near the office while June unlocked the door. Hollis's green cap lay in the bottom drawer, beside the unsigned copy of Owen's old offer. She ignored both and brought out the agreements Tasha had printed. Odessa signed first. June looked at the signature. You're staying? I wouldn't sign if I was going. Mateo signed next. Banner has 2 mechanics. That's better than 1, June said. They'd make me ask permission. Alma signed. Told me the schedule changes day to day, she said. I'm too old to learn Thursday on Thursday. Calvin took the pen. Banner's field supervisor did not appreciate my questions about rain pay. What did he say? Tasha asked. He said we'd discuss weather when weather happened. Odessa made a low sound. Calvin signed with an unnecessarily large C. Dennis remained. He held the agreement and looked toward the road. Banner's still more money if they give the hours. Yes, June said. I could use more money, I know. You gonna talk me out of it? No. His mouth tightened. You're bad at this. At what? Making people feel essential. June felt the old reflex rise, to tell him the farm could not survive without him, to make needs sound like belonging. Instead, she said, You do good work. I want you here. If Banner is better for your life, I'll help you go. Dennis studied her for another moment. Then he signed. Tasha signed last. You helped write it, June said. I can still reject my own work. But you're not? Tasha capped the pen. No. June looked at the 6 signatures. The relief was not triumph. It was weight, accepted willingly. 6 adults had considered a larger farm, higher wages, newer machinery, and a safer-looking season. They had asked questions, demanded changes, and chosen the place that had once been the obvious thing to leave. Odessa stood. We done? I think so. Good. Those trees are not pruning themselves. They went to work. The second season did not become easy because the crew stayed. Rain delayed thinning. The young trees required replacement after rabbits damaged several trunks. Mateo discovered a crack in the sprayer tank. The bakery reduced an order after its oven failed, then doubled the next one. But the system held. Schedules went up on Friday. Breaks happened when the board said they would. Tasha opened the market 4 days a week as the first peaches ripened. Mateo trained Dennis on repairs and discovered that complaining near an engine was, in fact, a teachable skill. Direct orders exceeded the previous year before the early variety finished. The fruit had no hail scars. Kavanaugh accepted the contracted loads without a fight over grade. The bonus threshold appeared on Tasha's board. Every day the green line moved closer. June watched without touching it. At the end of the early harvest, Tasha drew a black line through the threshold and wrote bonus earned beneath it. Calvin lifted her off the ground. She struck him twice with a receipt book until he put her down. That evening, they ate takeout barbecue beneath the loading awning. Not the harvest supper June wanted to hold after the final crop. Just food on paper plates while the packing line cooled. Caroline arrived carrying iced tea. Wade brought folding chairs. Owen came last, still in his Macon shirt. He looked at the board. Bonus? He asked. Workers earned it, June said. Owen studied the 6 names beside the amounts. Good. The simplicity of the answer surprised her. Caroline began talking about a proper harvest supper in Hollis's memory. Family tables, lights in the barn, the old pictures. People would love it. Which people? June asked. Us, the crew, buyers, everyone who helped. Wade nodded. Put the Mercer name over the doors again. June looked at the faded outline where Hollis's old sign had hung. Across the barn, Tasha was dividing the leftover barbecue. Odessa sat beside Alma. Mateo and Dennis argued over the sprayer repair. Calvin sang quietly because his mouth was full. Maybe, June said. Caroline smiled as if the decision had been made. Owen looked from his relatives to the crew, then back to June. You'll need to decide where everybody sits, he said. June met his eyes. Yes, she said. I will. The question of seating remained untouched for 3 weeks. There were peaches to pick, orders to fill, and one afternoon when the pump stopped because a field mouse had built a nest inside the control box. June was delivering fruit in Macon when it happened. Mateo called her. Pumps down, he said. June gripped the steering wheel. How bad? Don't know yet. I can turn around. No, I'm 20 minutes out. Tasha says the restaurant closes receiving at 2. I can come back after. Dennis and I have it. June drove another mile before the need to turn around loosened. At the restaurant, she unloaded 40 boxes, checked the counts against the invoice, and did not call Mateo from the loading dock. He sent a picture an hour later. Dennis stood beside the open control box, holding a clump of chewed grass. His expression suggested the mouse had insulted his profession. Under the picture, Mateo had written, "Dramatic, not dead." The pump ran before June returned. Nothing about the incident was miraculous. 2 people had authority to stop equipment, buy a replacement switch, and make a repair without waiting for June. Tasha had access to pay the supplier. Odessa shifted the picking crew to a block that did not need irrigation that day. The system worked because no one person had to save it. June stood beside the humming pump house longer than necessary, listening. The final variety ripened gold and red across the east rows. Its fruit was firmer than the early peaches and held well enough for restaurant deliveries. The sales window stayed open until 6. On Saturdays, cars lined both sides of the pecan drive, and Tasha placed Calvin at the road with a reflective vest and strict instructions not to invent parking rules. He invented 2. The second rule, no backing into trees, stayed. Kavanaugh took every contracted bin. Direct sales passed the bonus threshold, then climbed high enough to fund a second payment. Tasha posted both calculations on the barn wall where everyone could see the gross receipts, expenses, and percentage. June did not call the money a gift. The crew had picked, sorted, hauled, sold, repaired, scheduled, cleaned, counted, and stayed. The bonus belonged in payroll because that was where earned money went. The last fruit came off the trees on a warm afternoon in August. Odessa removed her gloves and leaned against a bin. That's it, she said. June looked up into the tree. One peach remained high in the center. You missed one, I left you one. Why? You looked like you needed closure. Calvin dragged over a ladder. Make a speech before you pick it. No, a short one. June climbed 2 steps and reached. The peach separated easily from the stem. It was warm from the sun, unscarred, and slightly soft beneath her thumb. Everyone waited. This is uncomfortable, June said. Speech is going great, Dennis told her. She climbed down and handed the peach to Alma, who cut it into 7 uneven pieces with her pocket knife. There are 8 of us, Calvin said. Alma ate 1. They shared the rest beside the empty bin. The final ledger took Tasha 4 days. She came to the kitchen on a Tuesday morning carrying a folder and a small grocery store cake with congratulations written across the top. They spelled it wrong, June said. It was discounted. What are we congratulating? Tasha placed the folder on the table. After wages, bonuses, taxes, repairs, winter reserves, the operating note payment, and money set aside for replacing the farmhouse roof, Mercer Peach Farm had made a profit. Not the kind Owen would put into a firm in Macon, not enough to erase the farm's debt or replace every tired tree. Enough to pay June a modest salary for the season and carry the core employees through their winter schedules without pretending preserves would cover everything. June read the number again. You counted the second bonus? Yes. Roof reserve? Yes. Property tax? June. Right. Tasha cut the cake. The frosting tasted faintly of refrigerator. June deposited her first farm paycheck that afternoon. It was smaller than the checks Owen received every month and larger than anything Hollis had ever paid her. She called Darlene from the bank the parking lot. I'm leaving the night shift, June said. No, I can give 3 weeks. No, I thought you'd be happy. I can be happy after I replace you. June smiled. I can still cover emergencies. That is how people end up working forever. You taught me that. I know. It's upsetting. Darlene found a replacement within 12 days and claimed the new clerk had no instincts about towels. June kept one Saturday shift a month until the end of the year, mostly because Darlene scheduled it without asking, and June had not yet learned every form of no. The harvest supper became Caroline's project. Before June formally agreed to hold it, her aunt arrived with samples of tablecloth fabric, a lighting catalog, and a printed seating chart. June did not look at the chart. No white cloth, she said. It's a supper. In a packing barn, we can make it elegant. Why? Caroline blinked. Because it's an occasion. Hollis ate beans from a saucepan over the sink. That doesn't mean we should. They compromised on bare wood tables, cloth napkins, and strings of warm lights borrowed from a catering company Caroline knew. Wade found old photographs of Hollis, Ellen, Caroline, and himself working the orchard when they were younger. Owen paid to enlarge them, but insisted his contribution not be announced. Mateo and Dennis built tables from retired sorting boards. They sanded away splinters without removing every stain. The wood carried dark circles where peach juice had soaked into it over decades. Tasha planned the food with Renee and the bakery. Odessa chose the date according to the orchard schedule rather than Caroline's preferred weekend. June invited the crew, the direct buyers, Darlene, Renee, Mr. Pritchard, and several neighboring growers who had sent equipment or advice during the season. Kavanaugh received an invitation too. He declined, but sent a note praising the quality of the later crop. Calvin read it aloud, in a voice so smooth and patient that everyone knew exactly who he was imitating. The night before the supper, June opened the bottom drawer of the barn desk. Hollis's cap rested where she had left it. The green had faded almost gray along the brim. She carried it to the market and hung it on a peg beneath one of the old photographs. Not at the center. Near the side, beside the first ugly peaches sign, and Tasha's framed copy of the corrected Kavanaugh statement. Owen's watch remained in the farmhouse dresser. June placed it in a small box and put the box in her coat pocket. The barn filled before sunset. Renee supervised trays of pork, greens, rolls, and peach-glazed chicken. Darlene took control of the drinks table after deciding no one else understood ice. The bakery brought 3 cakes, none discounted. Tasha locked the sales register, but left the shelves lit behind the white window. June wore clean jeans, boots, and a dark blue blouse Caroline had approved after objecting to 2 others. Her hair refused every arrangement attempted upon it. Leave it, Odessa said. Caroline lowered the comb. I'm trying to help. You've been trying 20 minutes. June escaped to the barn. The long table made from sorting boards stood beneath the lights. Smaller tables surrounded it. Caroline's place cards waited at each setting, written in gold ink. June walked along the long table. Odessa, Mateo, Tasha, Calvin, Alma, Dennis, Renee, Darlene, June. The cards were exactly where she had placed them that morning. Caroline came through the door, carrying a vase of late summer flowers. You changed my seating chart, she said. I made a seating chart. Where are we? June pointed toward a round table near the market. You, Wade, Owen, and Mr. Pritchard are there. Caroline stared. That's a good table, June said. It's not about whether it's good. What is it about? The long table is the family table. No, it's the head table. That's what I mean. June looked at the names. Caroline lowered her voice. People will notice. I hope so. Her aunt's face tightened. For a moment, June expected the old sentence, I understand why you feel that way. Instead, Caroline looked toward the photograph of herself standing beside Ellen in the young orchard. I left, she said. Yes. You're punishing me for that. No, it feels like it. June took the vase from her and set it on the long table. You made a choice that protected your life, she said. I'm not punishing you. But choosing the cash did not also choose this. Caroline looked around the barn. Workers and guests moved beneath the lights. Mateo was fixing a loose chair leg, despite being dressed for dinner. Tasha checked names against food counts. Odessa directed Calvin away from the microphone. This place belonged to my family, Caroline said. It still carries your name. That's not the same as belonging. No, June said. It isn't. Owen and Wade arrived together. Wade wore a jacket that fit badly across his shoulders. Owen wore Hollis's gold watch. June noticed before he spoke. He followed her gaze. I found the box on the porch. I didn't want you leaving it again. It's loud. You can survive it. Caroline intercepted them before Owen could answer. June seated us over there. Wade looked at the round table. Near the food, near the market. Good. The crew is at the family table. Owen glanced toward the long table. Maybe we should move the cards, he said. June felt the words land with an old, familiar weight. Why? She asked. Because Caroline invited people expecting a family supper. I invited people. You know what I mean. No, say it. Owen looked uncomfortable now. The workers have their own tables at things like this. The barn continued around them, though June heard it as if from a distance. They're not at their own table, she said. They're at mine. June, I'm not saying they don't matter. You're saying they matter somewhere else. Wade shifted his weight. Caroline held herself very still. Owen lowered his voice. Grandpa's family should be at the center of a supper held in his barn. When he died, the center of this place was a broken pump, a bad contract, and 6 weeks of payroll. That isn't fair. It's exact. You think taking the money erased us? No. It settled your share. Owen flinched. June hated that she had hurt him. She also knew the hurt did not make the words untrue. You chose what you could carry away, she said. They chose whether to come back, more than once. Odessa entered through the loading door and stopped when she saw the 4 of them gathered near the table. June met her eyes. Odessa did not intervene. That mattered. Owen looked down at Hollis's watch. The second hand moved around its face with tiny, audible clicks. What happens if I sit over there? He asked. You eat dinner. Am I still your brother? That depends on whether you complain about the chicken. His mouth moved, almost a smile. Caroline remained wounded. And me? June picked up one of the place cards from the round table. You have a chair, she said. Not the head chair, not ownership. A chair. Caroline looked at the card with her name on it. Then she took it. Wade was the first to sit. He selected the place nearest the rolls. Caroline joined him slowly. Owen waited until Odessa, Mateo, Tasha, Calvin, Alma, and Dennis had taken their seats at the long table. Then he sat beside Caroline. No one applauded, no one needed to. Dinner began late because Calvin gave an unauthorized welcome that lasted 7 minutes. Tasha removed the microphone after 4. Renee's peach glaze drew praise she accepted as her right. Darlene caught Wade hiding extra rolls in a napkin and brought him a paper bag. June did not make a speech. When asked, she stood at the long table and thanked everyone by name. She thanked Caroline for the lights, Wade for the photographs, and Owen for repairing the farmhouse floor without turning it into a discussion of property value. Then she sat down. After dessert, music played through speakers borrowed from the motel. Caroline danced once with Wade and once with Mr. Pritchard. Owen helped Mateo carry empty trays. The family table and the ordinary tables lost their shape as people moved between them. June stepped outside. The orchard lay dark beyond the barn lights. She walked to the first row, where the leaves moved softly in the night air. Footsteps followed. Owen stopped beside her. Grandpa would have hated the seating, he said. June laughed. He would have hated the lights. He'd ask what they cost. He'd count the uneaten rolls. They stood in silence. Owen touched the watch. I think I know why it sounded loud at my apartment. Why? Nothing else there sounded like him? June looked back at the barn. Hollis's cap hung beneath the photographs. He was present in the trees, the tools, the habits they had kept, and the ones they had refused. You can take it home now, she said. I think I can. Owen returned to the supper. June stayed at the edge of the row until the irrigation timer clicked. The pump started with a steady hum. Water moved through the buried lines, outward toward old trees, young trees, and the ground where new roots were taking hold. Behind her, the barn doors stood open. Odessa laughed at something Calvin said. Tasha called for help with the chairs. Caroline's voice rose above Wade's. Owen's watch kept time somewhere among them. June turned toward the light. This time, when the farm needed her, she was not the only one who answered.